What's up? Oh my God, I just dated myself a billion years. What a boomer I am. Oh my gosh. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. I know we are. Not just because JMac, our surrogate father, just dropped $100 right off the bat. Oh my God.
That's
Thank you
always
so
fun,
much,
right?
JMac.
Yeah.
Yes, it always gets the blood pumping. JMac says, I finally made it to these daily streams. Hope I'm not annoying you guys with my autistic No Man's Sky posting, but I'm really am having fun incorporating the show into my gameplay. I should have more fauna categories, including CT, Sammy G, and short, fat otaku references. Listen, Jay, nothing you do in the
I
realm
know.
of autism will ever annoy me. Okay,
Yes,
you're
yeah.
autistic surrogate son, so thank you.
It's impossible to be annoyed by $100 super chat, isn't it? It's just like
That's true.
physically impossible. Yes.
That's true.
And keep keep us posted on the No Man's Sky stuff. It's
Right.
fascinating.
Oh wait, look at this. The Wooster. Wait, is this true? The Wooster for $2 says Trump's firing campaign managers Adam and Sitch win. Is that true? Did he? I didn't see this. Is
Oh
this
my
actually true?
god. Oh my god.
I don't see it on Google. Is this like on Twitter? Is it just like breaking news? So,
Look, we suspected this. We definitely
mhm.
suspected this. So,
I
look, there
mean,
was
we'll
no
see.
he didn't I didn't get a message saying we were hired, so I don't
That's
know how,
true. That's true.
this might be good, this might be bad. Who
Well,
knows?
depends who the replacement would be, right? So, but I mean, we did say it looked like things like this was going to happen. But anyway, let's get into the story today, or
Mm-hmm.
one of the stories today. This is a very fascinating story. Um, the Harris campaign Google Ads rewrite news headlines. Now this is pretty wild. I don't know if you can like blow up the picture so people can really see this. This
Sure.
story is wild. Okay. So you know how on Google you can have like a little sponsored ad like when you Google certain things. So if someone like types in like Kamala Harris, like this ad can pop up in the little ad slot.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently the Harris campaign, what they did was they took these links for their ads and they were links to real articles that would be on NPR or AP or Reuters or CNN or whatever. So they were like a real article, but in the ad, they would rewrite the headline and the subtext completely to make it look like that the article was like this like total glowing puff piece that was glazing Kamala Harris's campaign. Okay.
Wow. That's a
So,
kind of a smart strategy there.
well, it's a smart strategy. It's also seemingly massively dishonest
Oh, you
strategy,
think it's
if you
oh,
ask
it's
me.
dishonest. Oh, okay.
Yes. Yes. Like, look at the CNN one. It says, "Who is Kamala Harris? Vice President Kamala Harris." And then it says underneath it, "Harris is the daughter of civil rights activists and has always fought for Americans." And you're like, wow, look at that. She's a great person. Or the Tim Walz one. Tim Walz military service 24 years. Governor Tim Walz audibly served 24 years as a member of the National Guard. And they're all like
Hmm.
these very, very glowing things. Now, this is very interesting because number one, I had a lot of trouble finding most of these articles. I literally couldn't find these articles that they're even referencing because they had
Wow.
changed the
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 text so
title and the
much.
text so much that I think some of the subtext I think are just completely made up. I don't even think they, or I think they basically consolidated a bunch of things and rewrote it in a way that was very glowing, right?
Right. So
So
this is their ad campaign. So their ad campaign is basically rewriting the news so people will see this and think this is the actual news headline. This is what CNN wrote about Kamala Harris, or this is what AP
yes,
News wrote, or this is what
exactly.
USA Today wrote, or this is what NPR wrote.
Right.
This is kind of Brave New World. Well, no, it's more 1984 than Brave New World, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this is kind of insane.
Right. And
Wait a
the
second.
only
Reuters is inflation is down under the Biden Harris administration. The U.S. is winning the inflation fight.
I
What was
tried
the
to find,
original? Yeah, what was the original
I couldn't
headline?
find it.
Really?
I couldn't find a Reuters article that said, quote, the US is winning the inflation fight. So I don't know if I saw articles that were sort of vaguely saying things like that, but I couldn't find this exact article. So I don't know if it exists.
What
At
if
least
you click on the ad? Oh, I guess
like I
the
had to
ad is
find
from
it.
the article. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know
So
where the ad is. So
I wonder if they're targeting. who they're targeting with these ads. Because that's the thing about all of these special ad campaigns, because you can target like swing voters. You can target certain demographics. They have a really narrow demographic field that you can target with your ads. So you can
Hmm.
make your ad spending super efficient. You're like, I only want to target white women in this zip code.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, that's the power of it all. And so, and you can see the only thing that sort of notifies you it's an ad is it says sponsored by Harris for president, like above it,
Right.
right? But I think this is just hyper deceptive. I think it's super easy for people to look at this very quickly and just assume it's an article and not an ad. Or even if you see it's an ad, I think it wouldn't be out of bounds for you to think, oh, it's an ad, but it's just an ad that's showing an article,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah.
um,
Oh,
now, this is
crazy.
kind of interesting too, because apparently this sort of ad is not against Google's terms of service, which I also think is kind of insane.
Right.
Google said the ads don't violate its rules, even though Facebook has banned the ability for advertisers to do this, to edit text for article links and ads. So Facebook banned this. Google still hasn't banned this, I guess, because they make a bunch of money off of it. And apparently, even though there's no evidence that the Trump campaign has engaged in this kind of behavior, many other politicians and many other non-political ads have done the same thing where they link a news article and then they change the text, even though it's like a real link. So I think it's kind of disgusting that Google allows this to continue. Obviously, they should change the terms of service. Maybe they will after this to prevent this kind of behavior.
So this goes to the actual article. They're setting it up so they link to the actual article. They aren't
Yes.
linking to Kamala's website or anything.
No, yeah. If you got the ad and clicked on it, it would go to the actual article,
Right.
supposedly.
Okay. Interesting.
Because again, I don't have the ad, so I can't click it. But
This is just information warfare, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, and you're right. This is kind of 1984. I think if Google doesn't change its terms of service after this, we're going to be seeing this increase, tenfold, hundredfold, because now people know it's like a thing. Other politicians know it's a thing, and then they're going to start using it like crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
This would be funny. This is what Trump should do. Okay, he should they should buy ads, okay, using real links to New York Times, CNN, all this stuff, and then make the title the most insanely incendiary thing ever. Like, Kamala Harris talks about how she's really not a black woman, New York Times. And
Whoa, my.
then you click it. It doesn't even have anything to do with, like, it's just, nonsense, right? You just be like, what?
Wow.
What? Kind of force them into. I'm just kidding. That'd actually be a horrible idea, but I think it'd be very funny, very trolly. Some super PAC maybe should do it just to if you want to force Google to actually change their terms of service.
We've
So,
really moved out of the like ad spots, a TV ad spots era, haven't we? This is like a completely different ball game. If this is the way
mhm.
to target specific districts, you really can narrow in on voters that you need with such. I mean, you're talking really small ad spends.
Yeah, because now
It's
you
kind of
can.
crazy.
It's interesting in the article itself. If you click on it, it shows you, how much they spent on the ad, how many people supposedly saw the ad, the location of the ad, and all these were like basically targeted to Pennsylvania very specifically, it seems like.
Right. Oh
So
yes,
that,
of course, yeah.
right.
Plus, the websites people are going to. Like if you have someone that's going to CNN or or Reuters regularly, you're like, okay, well, this is a voter, right?
Hmm.
If they're looking at election articles.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. It's crazy because I haven't, you're talking about like TV ads. I can't even remember the last time I've watched TV,
Oh yeah, me
honestly.
neither.
Like like when I've looked for new stuff, I'll look on their websites. Look up CNN, MSNBC, Fox, see what like the clip from the website. I can't remember the last time I've turned on a TV that had like cable access and been like, let me see what's playing. Like it's just I I just haven't even had the inclination to do that, and I years, I think.
People do see campaign ads in our videos because they comment on them in the
I'm sure. I'm
in the
sure.
comments.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure they do.
So they're probably targeting our Kingmaker audience. They're like, ha ha
Based.
ha. They know which of you live in Pennsylvania. They're desperate for your vote.
Hmm. Now, the other thing that's kind of interesting about this article is that so this article was written by Axios, and the author was Sarah Fisher. And so when she originally tweeted out this article, the tweet was Harris campaign has been editing news headlines and descriptions and search ads that make it appear as if major outlets support her. Google believes its sponsors disclosures are enough to keep voters from being misled, but media outlets may feel differently. This is because, of course, they ask, CNN, NPR, The Times, Reuters, like, hey, how do you feel that the Harris campaign is literally rewriting your headlines and stuff?
Right.
To which none of them, I believe, have really commented on it. They're just like, we are unaware of this. So they're kind of doing some simping, some defense, running some D for Kamala Harris. But then after the article had been up or the tweet had been up for, let's see, only a few minutes. So she wrote that tweet at 2:47 p.m., at least Eastern, and then at 2:57 p.m. Okay, so only 13 minutes later, or right now, I'm sorry, 10 minutes later, um, she then wrote another tweet saying, Harris campaign doing nothing wrong. And Google, which is pretty strict about banning spammy ads, doesn't, oh, my phone went off, doesn't see it as a consumer harm. News outlets just collateral damage in this weird ad technique. So they wrote this article that shows the Kamala Harris campaign doing something, which is obviously immoral. If Trump campaign was doing this, everyone would be screaming their heads off about it. Google would be talking about changing their policies, et cetera, et cetera. And the author of the article, after the article's been up for 10 minutes, is already like, listen, I just want to point out that Kamala Harris did nothing wrong,
Right. Yeah.
which to me is like insane, is completely insane.
Yeah.
So,
Dishonest advertising
mhm.
is not necessarily nothing wrong, right? What is
No.
this from July 31st? If you go down a bit, it says Google cracks down on deceptive ads ahead of election. Did you read that article? Google's
No.
updating its ads policy to prohibit domestic advertisers from using spammy tactics. Oh, this uh spammy ad tactics to conceal their identities and to ban international advertisers that use ads to promote okay, so it's just they're basically cracking down on other advertisers just ahead of the election, not necessarily to do with the election. They're clearing
Right.
the way
Yeah,
for
exactly.
Kamala Harris to
Exactly.
come in and use the platform as deceptively as humanly possible.
Hmm.
This does this does actually save the Harris campaign a step though, because they don't actually have to call the New York Times and ask them to change the headline.
I can just do it
So
themselves. There you go. Right.
exactly.
And it's interesting too, because it's also, you know, uh, looks at because one of the headlines is about Tim Walz
Right.
and his military service. And that's kind of interesting because that story hasn't gone away. That story keeps coming back. The whole Tim Walz stolen valor story, which I think actually is gaining ground. It seems to be gaining ground even in normal publications, with them either having to defend it or to keep asking Tim Walz questions about it, because it's pretty undeniable that Tim Walz lied, I guess would be the correct way to say it, lied about his military service in terms of being like I don't believe he ever directly said I went to Iraq or something, but he would
He
he
heavily
would use
implied
a
it.
lot of
Yeah.
implications, right, in these in campaign speeches to make it sound like he went to Iraq.
Right. Yeah, he
He's like,
padded
oh,
his bio.
yeah, he 100% padded his bio. He was 100% hyperbolic whenever he was describing his military service. There's some question about whether his rank was actually his rank or something. I don't know the 100% specifics about that, but this story, it's interesting because I didn't know the direction the story was going to go. Um, because normally the VP doesn't really matter that much in these sorts of campaigns. Most people aren't voting for or against a candidate for their vice president. I think one of the few exceptions to that might have been Sarah Palin. And I
Oh
think that
yeah.
was because yeah, for two reasons. Number one, Sarah Palin was so bad and so retarded. And but also that John McCain was so old that people did have a concern that McCain might age out, kind of like Biden, and Palin would be the replacement. And so, you look at Kamala Harris, obviously she doesn't, even though she's like 60 or whatever, she doesn't seem like she's going to age out in the next 8 years. So you think, oh, well, maybe it doesn't really matter. But then on the flip side of that, Kamala Harris herself is the VP who has basically replaced Biden. And so that might make this concept of the VP replacing the president more prescient on everyone's minds. They might say, oh, well, maybe if Tim Walz does have this like weird baggage of lying about his military service, maybe that will be more impactful on, the electorate's decision on whether they vote for her or not.
Right. Yeah. This is such a nefarious tactic because if you hear something about Tim Walz's service, right, and you're thinking, oh, did he really? Is it a case of stolen valor? Did he really lie about it? They go to the
Mm-hmm.
internet, right? They're going to look it up. The first thing that comes up are the sponsored ads, right? So you're
Right,
searching
right,
Tim Walz, stolen valor, right? And this
right,
article pops up about his Tim Walz military service, 24 years in the National Guard. Governor Tim Walz honorably served 24 in a link to some other article.
right.
You're thinking, like, if they just push the stolen valor stories off the first page, you're golden. These people are like, oh well, this is just fake right wing propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, this is kind of an interesting strategy to change the narrative up, to fight the narrative.
Right. Oh, this is
Yeah.
funny. Here's the CNN article from a few days ago. It says Walls misspoke in quotes. He misspoke in saying he served in war.
Right.
He misspoke. Governor Tim Walz misspoke in a newly resurfaced video from 2018, which he said he handled assault weapons, quote, in war, a Harris campaign spokesman told CNN.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yes. Tim
And
Walz
also,
misspoke when he said he was in the Battle of Fallujah.
he meant he was in the Battle of Falafel. He got into a really heated exchange with the falafel food cart, in Italy when he was
Oh yeah,
deployed.
Italy when he was
Yeah,
helping out.
right, right. Um, yeah, it's so stupid too because if he like this happens constantly. This was the same thing. Who was the reporter that kind of told that story about the helicopter? They were like in some helicopter crash, but they weren't.
Trump?
No, no,
I mean, that's a Trump story that's going around right now.
no. What was his name? It was Brian Williams. Yeah, remember Brian Williams was like
Oh
this
yes, I do
famed,
remember it.
like massively popular, trusted news reporter for NBC. And he would tell this story about being in Iraq and like the helicopter being shot down or something of that effect. And it turned out like the whole story was completely fake. And it was like people just create these stories and they don't need to. It just ends up destroying their career or their integrity. Because like Tim Walz, if he just said that he was in the National Guard, like he doesn't need to just say like I was just in the National Guard for 20x years, right? That's all you have to say. That's
Hillary
all you have to say.
Clinton. Look, Hillary Clinton was guilty of one of these too, I believe, where she was said they landed in some dangerous place under fire, and
Mm-hmm.
they actually looked up the news report and it was like Hillary getting out with her family and stuff, just safely walking into the embassy. These are quite common.
I know, I know. Well, because people that like something happens and they want to be like, oh, look how awesome I was. I had this experience. They didn't.
Yeah, they want to say they had some harrowing experience.
Right. Oh, here it is.
So
This is
so
a
they're a
Washington Post
hero.
article from 8 years ago. Hillary Clinton's claim of landing under sniper fire in Bosnia.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Do you remember this?
I
And I
don't remember
think
this.
Chelsea
No.
Clinton was with her too. I was like, oh, where's this? Oh, look, there's Chelsea. Where's the
Yeah, this.
sniper fire?
Yeah, it says in a 2008 speech in Iraq, Hillary Clinton said she landed in Bosnia under heavy fire, but video of the landing shows otherwise. And there's video of her just like landing totally nonchalantly. You're right, her daughter is there. She just walks out. And
It
also,
was
like,
a
how
that was a
stupid you
big
have to be.
whoopsie.
How stupid you have to be to tell this lie. Like, I mean, it's like all recorded, as you're
Oh, I
walking out of the plane
know.
and everything.
I
Like, come on.
know. It's completely ridiculous.
Why would you think you'd get away with it? Yeah,
Who
she
knows?
she walks out of the helicopter. She's like shaking hands with a bunch of people. It's like, oh no, she's under sniper fire,
Where's
everybody.
the sniper at?
Yeah, I don't know. But maybe she heard the little clicks of the cameras and she was like thought that they were bullets whizzing by.
Danger.
Right. So yeah, so I don't think the Tim Wall story, I don't know. I don't think the Tim Wall story is going to go away. And also, you know, there is the situation where a lot of these margins are very slim in these
Hmm.
swing states. And I don't know if it's enough to make it because like I don't know if there's like 50,000 veterans in some of these swing states, but I could definitely see that this is an issue that veterans who would maybe vote for Harris would not because of this issue. So I do think
Right.
this is a potentially very damaging issue
That's a
for
good
Harris.
point. That is a great point because it really isn't about you and me. It's swaying our vote. It's about the veterans, swaying the
Right.
veterans' vote. Yeah. That's an interesting point
Yeah,
because,
yeah,
yeah,
the average person who hasn't served, this is probably not going to change their vote one way or
right.
the other. But a veteran 100% could change their vote. So,
And they know how many veterans are in every look. We're just swimming in data right now.
right.
The kind of campaign these elected officials can run now is just, I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Hmm.
They can basically count the votes ahead of time.
To some extent, you know, you sent me two very, very interesting interviews with Nate Silver because he wrote some book, and I guess he's doing the book tour thing.
I'm tempted to read this new book, but I read Nate Silver's first book, and it is probably the most boring book I've ever read in my entire life.
Wow.
Like it was so bad.
Hmm.
Maybe I'll get it and read a chapter, and if it sucks, I'll return it. So it sounds interesting, but I don't know. Somehow I feel like Nate Silver could make it boring. These interviews are amazing though. They're totally fascinating.
Yeah, especially the one with Ezra Klein, who, we don't like at all here. But,
Hmm.
Nate, it's hilarious because Nate Silver is like really uh kind of red pilled on a lot of things. It's funny, he even has a name. What was it? He has a name for like the quote regime media, the way that like Curtis
Yeah.
Yarvin has a name.
The Blue Church. Yeah. What does he
Yeah,
call it? I can't remember what it
yeah,
is,
he has,
but
I forget what he calls it, but he has his own name for like this whole thing. And,
and
he's even talking about
the
how
red
like,
religion has a name too.
right. And he was
The
even talking about how
river.
like, yeah, how like wokeness is essentially kind of like poisoned the left. And, it's just like he's like really seems to be aware of what's going on in the world. It's very fascinating. So
Yeah.
so that makes me inclined to trust a lot of his intuitions, a lot of his data, because he seems to kind of be aware.
He made an interesting point while we are talking about those interviews that I made. I can't remember if it was yesterday or on Sunday, but I was talking about stakes, the stakes in this election.
Hmm.
And for those of you who don't know, Nate Silver is like a high stakes poker player. And he's really fascinated by how the stakes of the situation really change your entire like thought process, your entire body chemistry changes, right? When there's these massive stakes, when you're betting on a hand where there's like 200,000, you could lose $200,000 in the blink of an eye. You can't, it's difficult for you to overcome the reality of those stakes. And when I was talking about Donald Trump, I was mentioning this is the highest stakes probably he's ever had in his entire life as far as making deals go, right? This
Hmm.
election he's going to walk away from as, the comeback kid or the loser of the century. So I think those stakes, especially when the polling is so neck and neck. I mean, it's easy for Donald Trump when he's up 5 points, right? common wisdom these days is that the Electoral College favors Republicans. So the Democrats really have to be up 5 points just to win the Electoral College. So he's got some wide latitude here. But when it's this close, when the polling is this close, those stakes really have to become evident to Donald Trump. And I do think it's affecting his look. I guess you could look up, did he fire his campaign manager? I mean, that's probably a pretty crazy move at this point. So I
So
do think,
here's an
go ahead.
article talking about that. It's from the Daily Mail. I don't know. I don't know if this has been confirmed yet. It says inside Trump's meltdown, ex-president is lighting up his staff because he's pissed about picking JD Vance, as insiders fear he's going to fire two extremely talented campaign gurus. So it is now, again, you can kind of take this, as with a grain of salt until it happens, because it's, the anonymous insider source. So who knows what that means? But they're saying that, quote, apparently, well, let me not quote it. Let me just say it's saying that basically that they're claiming Trump is running around, freaking out, that the campaign seems to be slipping away from him. And these insiders claim that he's seriously considering getting rid of his campaign managers. So,
See, what I really want to know is who's at fault in this conflict. Are the campaign managers giving Trump bad advice, or are the campaign managers giving Trump good advice that he's not following? Right? Like you can't really blame them if they're giving you good advice that you're not able to follow. Then firing them is just, I mean, he's just turning them into scapegoats. So he's not
right.
able to, so he doesn't have to take personal responsibility for what's happening.
Well, I mean, I would guess, just based on the way that we see Trump interact with, the press, the way we've seen him talk and have these conversations, where it seems like a lot of what Trump is doing is not disciplined. It's
Mm-hmm.
very off the cuff. It's very intuition based. Trump definitely seems to be the one who leads his own direction, as opposed to Kamala, who I think does sort of workshop things, listen to what her campaign managers are saying, maybe allows them to sort of, because she's kind of an empty vessel. So I think she allows other people to fill up that vessel, where Trump is like this animal. Trump is like an animal, like that's like fueled on instinct, I think. And so my guess would be that the campaign managers are, I don't know if they're giving him good advice, but I think they're probably giving him advice to do things and he's not doing it at all. Because, I mean, these two campaign managers are like, very famous Republican campaign managers that a lot of people are pointing to and saying, have a lot of experience in this. And the word on the street, of course, obviously, is that they did not want the JD Vance pick, that they, are sort of pushing Trump to try to do things that Trump doesn't want to do or isn't doing. So, he could be firing them as a scapegoat, or just because he doesn't necessarily like what they're telling him.
Right.
Which, on one hand, but you're right, because it actually is very important, because, and we said this the other day, Trump needs to change the variables. He needs to change something. He's Right now, his campaign strategy is essentially waiting for Kamala to screw up. And while I definitely think it's very likely Kamala will screw up, that's not a strategy you ever want to be in. You don't want to have to wait for your opponent to screw up. You want to keep trying to push yourself into a better and better and better position. And he's not seemingly so far really changed any of his behavior, changed any of his strategy. He's kind of doing the same thing and it's not working.
Right. He's doing the Kamala Harris is a disaster. Biden is a disaster, when he shouldn't. I mean, he shouldn't even be mentioning Biden. Like
No.
The strategy I laid out, where he actually goes after the Biden voters that defected from him in 2016, seems like a more solid strategy than continuing to attack Biden. Then he comes off as magnanimous, which I think people want to believe their president is magnanimous. He comes off as magnanimous and tries to court those voters.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen though. Like this,
No.
this is the kind of thing that I'm saying. his strategist could be telling him, and he could be saying, "Oh, well, I fucking hate Biden. I'm not gonna blow Biden up. I'm not getting on my hands and knees for Biden,"
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
When they're, I mean, that just, it's more for the voters. Sooner or later, dude, you have to like court the voters.
Right. Right.
I've seen a lot of Republican strategist types harping on Trump's inability to do the discipline thing. So,
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's been that's always, you always have to be somewhat careful when you have like the insiders say things.
oh yeah,
But there definitely has been a pattern of insiders who have worked with Trump that have all said the same thing, which is that he's not disciplined and he's sort of hard to direct, right? He just sort of goes in his own direction. So, and it's funny because
yes.
I already see articles talking about, this, whether Trump's going to fire them. I already see articles coming out from like the more MAGA camps that are already talking about how these campaign advisors are actually like secret, evil, swamp rhino people because, they have to create some kind of clouded defense for Trump. So, expect that to come if he does fire them. Okay.
So in the chat, Florida Meth Gator says Adam Trump gained voters in 2020. He didn't lose any voters. He did gain he got more voters in 2020 than he did in 2016. But there is a large number of voters that voted for him in 2016 and then voted for Biden in 2020. Those are the
Mhm.
voters that I'm talking about. They defected. So they voted for Trump once, which makes you think, well, they could possibly vote for him again, right? What happened between 2016 and 2020 that they decided to change their mind and vote for Biden? Those are literally swing voters. Like they voted for one candidate and then voted for another in the very next election. Those are the ones that I'm talking about targeting. So, yes, you are correct that he got more voters in numbers, but I'm talking about the voters. Like obviously, if you can take a voter away from Biden, who knows? Those voters are probably teed up to vote for Harris.
Mhm.
If you're talking about peeling off voters, I don't. You're not going to peel off a voter who's a 20-year Democrat voter, right? You're going to peel off a voter who's a swing voter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So insulting the candidate that those people voted for in 2020, you're basically calling those people a disaster. You're saying what you did in 2020 was a major disaster. And I don't see how you can tell them that and then ask for their vote, right?
Hmm. Not a
What
good
you did
idea.
what
Yeah.
you did in 2020 is a disaster. Vote for me in 2024.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's a good
So,
point. That's a good point.
look, and
We'll
you
see.
should be targeting certain voters. I mean, Trump knows this. We have evidence that Trump knows this because in the press conference where he came out, the one that I thought was a mess, he says he has a complete section in that press conference where he talks about the demographics. He's up with these people, he's down with these people, he's very high with white males, he's doing great. Like he even understands that, sometimes you lose some voters in this category and you gain some voters in this other category. So we understand that he is knowledgeable in this whole voter coalition system,
Mhm.
right? He understands how it works. So I don't like, why don't you try to pick up that certain coalition?
Discipline. Discipline.
Right. Anyway,
Well, listen. Obviously, if he fires his campaign managers,
they're
we'll
going
wait.
to, oh, it's
Okay.
so
Hire
easy.
us. We know what's up.
It is so easy to paint that as a meltdown, an unhinged meltdown.
Even if it's a good
That
idea.
is ridiculous. Yeah. The
Right.
the way that you would do this to avoid that. Look, and evidently there's no one in the Trump campaign has discipline because even this would leak, right?
Right.
You would you would keep those people on and keep them as advisors, but you'd bring on new advisors and you would sideline those people. So
Hmm.
it wasn't a complete, the media didn't characterize it as a complete meltdown, a complete
Right.
like restructuring of the Trump campaign. It doesn't ring of confidence when you start throwing people overboard. Sitch, do you think that's, I mean, am I
No,
wrong here?
obviously. Well, that's why I said I don't think there's any shot or any chance of him replacing Vance because it would be perceived as a very panicked move. It would not
Right.
be perceived as a strong move. That's why I don't think he'd get rid of Vance, even if, as I think, Vance was a big mistake because I don't think he really picks up anything from doing it. And
Well, and he makes him look older just standing next to Vance. If he was standing next to Bergman, he wouldn't look so old.
that's true. That's a very good point. Yeah. So. Stargate 404 for $5 says, what do you think of the revelation that Harris was the tie-breaking vote for taxing tips? Can't hide behind the I was just VP, I had no power excuse. So I need to look into that more. Because my understanding is that she was the tie-breaking vote for the Inflation Reduction Act. Is that not what people are talking about? Um,
The Inflation Reduction Act is the one that paid for more IRS agents to go after people who were tax dodging.
right,
And there
right.
were like they pitched it as obviously they're going to go after rich people who are dodging on their taxes. But I do think also they were going to go after people who are not claiming tips. So,
Right. So is it like, so that kind of, I think that provides enough vagueness to sort of not really paint the clear picture of the tax on tips. It's not like there was a law that said we're going to increase tax on tips specifically, and that's all the law says. And then Harris says, I'm, the tie-breaking vote on this, right? It's sort of
right.
this vague, like gigantic Inflation Reduction Act bill that just gives the IRS additional power to go after essentially everyone. So
Yeah. It
the right will
also
paint
gives
it that
tax.
way,
Yeah.
but I
It
don't think it will like get its claws into the population.
it has already gotten its claws into the right because the right is moving with that argument
Right.
every day. What is saying that argument to me on Twitter. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, the bill also gives huge tax incentives to incentivize manufacturing to be moved onshore, which you'd think a lot of Republicans would be in favor of, right? Why aren't we manufacturing why are we manufacturing those excellent chips that everyone loves in Taiwan? Like, why aren't we manufacturing GPUs in the good old US of A, right?
Right. Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Because I even found an article talking about it, which is, anti Kamala. And the way they phrase it is they say, on August 7th, 2022, Harris cast a tie-breaking vote to pass the Inflation Reduction Act that provided $80 billion in additional funding to the IRS, which they then got to work cracking down on the service industry's reporting of tips so that they could be taxed. In February 2023, the IRS released a proposed revenue procedure known as the Service Industry Tip Compliance Agreement Program. The agency describes it as a voluntary tip reporting program between the IRS and employers in various service industries that would include monitoring of employer compliance based on actual annual tip revenue and charge tip data for an employee's point of sale system. Blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of more like obviously Harris, she's the tie-breaking vote for this massive Inflation Reduction Act. Part of that is to give the IRS more funding because obviously, even though people don't like to think about this, if the IRS is able to increase its tax revenue, that shrinks the money supply, thus reducing inflation. And if part of that is the IRS is creating a program to make sure people that get tips are taxed on those tips, you know, then that's just the way the cookie crumbles. I don't think it's going to be particularly persuasive to be like, aha, therefore Kamala is in favor of taxing tips on this massive bill that she signed, that was some tiny part of, in 2022.
it's good politics, though. It definitely is.
Um,
I mean, it looks bad.
well, it's one of those things where the story itself is too complicated for the average person to digest. So it will be simplified down to the point of dishonesty, where they'll just say Kamala Harris was a tie-breaking vote on taxing people's tips, which, if you think about it, doesn't actually make sense because we don't live in a world where tips are tax-free. You have to pay tax on your tips, or you're supposed to, even if people don't. So it doesn't even make sense.
Right.
But it's like a concept that they want to push. So again, yeah,
Right.
I think what we said is I think what you said is true. It'll be circulating a lot on right wing media. I don't think it's going to break out of that echo chamber, though.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's going to change their, well, maybe, I don't know. These service workers might get pissed off enough. They might peel off some votes in Nevada. Who knows?
Um,
We'll find out,
I'm
won't
scared.
we?
I mean, I don't even really see even right wing media, kind of normal media sites reporting on it. It's really these sort of secondary,
Oh,
tertiary
okay.
sites reporting on it. So.
I only see people in my Twitter mentions reporting on it.
Right, right. Because it's one of those things where it's like there's some way to write the story that's like kind of true, but it's too difficult for a headline. The news corporations on all sides, they really want that easy to like summarize headline right there.
How people engage in politics in the age of social media is fascinating because it really is about reputation destruction. That's what
Right.
people feel like they can do to get involved in the campaign. They're like, here's a story of Kamala Harris being a giant hypocrite, right? She says,
Right.
I'm for no tax on tips, when in reality, she actually was a tie breaking vote in a bill that taxes tips, right?
Right.
So this smears her as dishonest, and that's really what's going on. People are sharing this article because, or sharing this narrative because that's the narrative that destroys Kamala Harris's reputation.
Well, that's a great point. And people love hypocrisy. And actually, I think there is a way to make this story work. But
Mhm.
again, I think it requires some discipline on Trump's part. I think
Discipline. How do you do that?
discipline,
It's so funny. Every time you say it,
discipline.
it's hilarious.
It is both
Dis-
a South Park and actual death story reference because he stole it from South Park, and I'm stealing it.
discipline.
Discipline. Um,
Prin.
discipline. So,
Prin.
um, there's a. I think
Okay.
I think Trump would make this a story. Trump does have the power to just repeat something again and again and again to make the media respond to it and make it a story. So, and obviously, as we all know, Trump isn't super concerned about being like 100% accurate when he says stuff like this. So, this is if I was Trump's campaign manager. Listen, me and Adam, we're raising our hand for the spot. Hire us, Trump. Okay, this is what you got. This is what he should be doing. It's it's the comma chameleon. Okay, you got to just keep hitting the Kamala is a fake. Kamala is a fraud. Kamala is a phony. Kamala is a hypocrite. Fake, 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 fake Kamala, fake Kamala, fake Kamala, lying Kamala. And if that was a narrative that was being pushed, she lied about the border. She's, lying about Joe Biden's age, right? We all saw this. She lied about not Joe Biden's age, Joe Biden's competency for his age, right? And this could just be another like, piece to that puzzle is Kamala stole my tax on tips, and yet, she was a tie-breaking vote in favor of, well, Trump would probably say like in favor of taxing tips, even though it's not exactly accurate. And I think if he just kept saying that, it would enter into the news cycle because they would feel like they'd have to respond to it. And then he could also throw in Tim Walz. Tim Walz is lying about his military service, right? And I think that would be
Right.
effective, is just to paint Kamala as a big fake, a big phony, because it would force her to come out and actually engage. And that should be really Trump's strategy is Kamala right now, her strategy is to hide. And the Trump campaign strategy needs to be to force her out of hiding. That's why I think what JD Vance did when he like approached her plane on the tarmac, like that's a good strategy right there. You need more things kind of similar to that. You don't necessarily want to like stalk her because then you'd fall into the weird category, but you want to do more things that kind of force the media to notice and to report that Kamala's not engaging with the media. And I think throwing out these she's fake, 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 fake claims, Trump doing it, if he could do it in a disciplined way without talking about the black shit or just stupid shit that the media will fixate on, like that would be the tactic for the Trump campaign.
Do you think it's a better strategy to constantly bring attention to the fact that she's not doing interviews, that she's basically running from the media, or do you think it's a better strategy to come up with various claims about her, maybe about past policies that are uncomfortable, and just continue to hit her from that angle and kind of force her to come out to the media to basically set the story straight?
I think you should do both, actually. I think Trump should come out and he should, like, every time he speaks, after he paints his, he should paint his positive picture, which he has to do.
Of
I think he's
himself, right?
of himself and his campaign, which I think is one of the weaknesses of his campaign so far, is that
Right.
the that's what he should be doing, painting this positive picture of himself. But then when he goes on the attack, it should be all about Kamala is fake, phony, and he kind of lists all these things that make her fake and phony. And then after he lists them, he then says, "This is why Kamala Harris is running away from the media."
Yeah,
Okay,
that is the plan right
right.
there.
You had because then you
So
paint her
every
not
time
as
she
fake,
runs
but a
away from the
coward.
media, yeah, every time
Right,
she runs away from the media, you know why. She's like, it
right,
adds validity to those arguments that he's making.
right. And Trump can even say, "What is she? Why is she hiding? What does she hide? She was hiding Biden's mental competency for 4 years, and now she's hiding from her own positions."
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot to work with there against Kamala. Now, this strategy that I'm proposing could potentially backfire because if Kamala does come out in the media and manages to, you know, I'm skeptical of this, but manages to do a 180 and actually kill it in interviews, then it would kind of destroy this entire strategy. But I'm skeptical of her ability to do that.
What would the counter be to that? So Trump has done this for a couple weeks. Kamala stops running. She comes out and she gives a press conference and addresses all of these claims and just completely cleans house.
Well, she wouldn't need to. Wait, what would be the counter to what? To her
So
cleaning house, or what would
what would Trump's response be to that?
Oh,
Yeah, because that would be devastating. Obviously,
right.
if he's built up this narrative for a week or so, and then
Mm-hmm.
she comes out and she says, all of these, like she explains the vote on the tips thing. She's like, this is a giant infrastructure bill to incentivize manufacturing to come back to the United States. If Donald Trump is not in favor of manufacturing coming back to the United States, maybe he should speak up, right? Like she totally just kills him.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. It
How does
would.
Trump respond?
It'd have to depend on what she says specifically. I don't know if he could like tendy chess outward the response to the response without knowing what the response would be.
Look, you got to think these things through to the bitter end.
Right.
That is another thing. I've seen Nikki Haley doing this interview tour where she's basically saying, well, I said Kamala was going to be the nominee 10 months ago. Like, why weren't people preparing for this? Right.
Right.
She's
Right.
doing a
Yeah.
big I told you so tour.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. She is.
So that's why I'm just saying, look, you got to think these things through. This is the job of the campaign manager.
Right.
They're like, okay, we're going to do this. How are they going to respond? What are we going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of that is going on. I
I
think
think it's going
Trump
on the
is.
Harris side, which is part of
Oh,
why they're doing well right now.
look, they have targeted ads. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, yeah, they are thinking this through. They're like, oh, wait a second. They're hitting us with this stolen valor claim. Maybe we can just circumvent it, right? Through targeted ads in those areas.
Right.
Where can this hurt us the most? Well, it only really matters with veterans. Like, they're doing this walkthrough.
Mm-hmm.
This is, yeah, I don't know how Trump is spending his campaign money. So that's another part of this equation. Like, raising money is one thing, right? Everyone's losing their minds over how much money Kamala has raised. If that money's not spent efficiently, it doesn't really matter. It appears that she is spending the money efficiently, though. So,
Mm-hmm.
You got to have the money to spend it, and then once you raise the money, you have to actually deploy it usefully. I'm not sure the Trump campaign is deploying anything they're raising usefully. Look at we say this, and everyone is kind of freaking out. We have a bunch of Trump supporters in our audience, and I think they're just like, I don't think it's good to be raw and kind of be in the dark about the reality of the situation.
Mhm.
So
Well, I understand why you shouldn't be that way because it leads to your downfall. And that's kind of exactly what happened with Hillary in 2016 was that everyone was like, rah, rah, Hillary can't lose. She's going to win. She's going to win. And they were ignoring all the signs that were saying she's losing. She needs to do something. And then she never did anything and lost. Right.
yeah,
And I understand why a lot of the Trump people are kind of in the place that they are emotionally because you had this insane. I've never seen anything like this. You've had the quickest reversal of fortunes I've ever seen in politics, where, Trump gets shot at and he takes the amazing picture, right? He has that amazing picture and he kind of has his RNC immediately afterwards. And at least, the first half of the speech was really good. And it seemed like, it was over at that moment. There were so many people I saw that said, it's over, Trump won, it's over, Trump won, both on the left and right. It's over, it's over, it's over, it's over and over. Now I said, we're a long way away from the election. Be careful what you say. Anything could change very quickly. And so a lot of people that were Trump supporters felt like they were riding this super high wave and they felt like it was so in the bag. And then you have this insanely quick reversal where Biden drops out like very quickly after the convention. Harris gets anointed, and then you see this like meteor, catastrophic, insane rise that's in groundswell of support that goes under Kamala, and kind of to add injury to insult, it's all kind of like fake. Well, I mean, it's like real, but it's like built on something that's not real, right?
yeah.
It's all based on hype and illusion and kind of this like idea as opposed to like the real person. And so you get this like insane reversal where you go from being in the high position to suddenly being in the low position.
Yeah, Kamala came out and said, "We are the underdogs in this," which I thought, "Oh, that's pretty smart."
Right.
Lower expectations, right?
Yeah, but now it's kind of the opposite. Now the expectations for Kamala are like through the roof, which could definitely be self-destructive
But
at some point.
Kamala's never going to come out and say we're winning. She's always going to say we're the underdogs
No,
because
but I'm just
that's
saying
the
like
intelligent move to make. I
the
mean, Trump should be saying that.
you're correct, but there could be a situation where the expectations for Kamala are so high since she's being viewed as the second coming of Obama, you know, that when if she does, I mean, I feel like she has to, when she eventually comes out of her little cave to look at her shadow and to give some interviews and do this debate, that if she just fucks up, the fact that the expectations for her are so high could actually prove to be a downfall down the road.
Yeah, we'll see what
I
happens.
don't know.
So,
It is
so do you want
interesting.
to move on to
Yeah, we can move on. Well, let
the
me read the
immigration thing?
Yeah, we'll watch the immigration thing in a second. Let me just finish reading the super chats. We keep getting off on this tangent.
Well, it is so fascinating, and
It
the
is. It
reversal of
is. Yeah.
fortunes is. I mean, this is what makes a great game, right? When the score is close, neck and neck, and there's constant reversals going on, right? This
Hmm.
team is up. This team is up. That's what makes things interesting. I mean, movies are crafted this way. A movie's basically crafted so there's a lot of emotional reversals that go on and keep us enthralled.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you usually don't get this in an
No.
election.
No.
It's crazy.
Well, it's funny because I it's so you're right. This is perfectly crafted like a movie. Um, and it's hilarious because Scott Adams, our favorite, he kept because he believes that like life is a simulation, and he kept saying that the election was gonna be like a movie or like these third act twists and everything. And he kept, because of his own, I guess, perceptions, he kept thinking this was going to be a third act twist in favor of Trump. But right now, it's definitely in favor of Kamala, like all the twists and turns. And it's because it's like this weird situation where because all the Democrat voters were in such a low emotional point because they thought Biden was 100% going to lose, that seeing the little lifeboat of Kamala, even if it's got a bunch of holes in it, which they don't necessarily see, they're just so happy about it that the enthusiasm is so high right now for the Democrats.
If there's a third act twist coming here, it's Trump dropping out. I know you've said,
I don't
and
think that's possible. No.
you've given a
Yeah.
good argument why he wouldn't,
Right.
why
Yeah.
how he's basically all in and his back's against the wall, so it's
Right.
impossible for him to drop out. But I'm not so sure if he doesn't, like, he could blame health problems. There's a lot of ways to navigate that so he doesn't lose as much support as he will lose if he loses the election.
I just don't see it. I just
Right.
can't. I cannot see that happening.
Well, what would be a more stunning, I mean, in the sense, if we were writing this as a movie, what would be a more stunning third act reversal?
There's okay. If we're writing a movie, the third act, the way to make the movie work is that it has to be like neck and neck until the very end, right? So you have this Trump's riding super high, crazy reversal. Now Kamala's like riding super high. So you have to have something that brings Kamala back down so that it's like neck and neck. And I don't know, you'd have to have some like insane controversy come out that no one knew about in Kamala's history, right? Like, you know, Kamala had a DUI and like killed somebody or something crazy like that.
Oh, really?
Kamala sexually assaulted a young staffer, something crazy that like comes out, like 2 weeks before the vote.
Well, that would be personal stakes, but I'm thinking more in terms of like historic stakes. I would think Trump drops out and Nikki Haley becomes the nominee, and then you've got both parties fighting for the historical role of first woman president. Because then it's like, wow. That's
Well,
like,
that can't happen. If Trump drops out, it automatically goes to Vance.
yeah, how would we get around that? If we were writing this as
If we were writing
screenwriters,
it,
how would we get around that? Look, I've already figured out how we'd get
right,
around that. So look, Trump is flagging. He in his epic meltdown, he replaces Vance with Nikki Haley
and then drops
and
out.
trying to save his campaign. And it turns out worse, right? He continues to sink in the polls. Then when he drops out, Nikki Haley is the candidate. There you
Oh,
go.
okay.
There's your
This is
movie.
this is how this would work. And I hate to say this, and I'm kind of disgusted saying this. It would work in a very Sorkin-esque way. And I say I hate because like Sorkin, if you've watched Newsroom or if you watch West Wing, he'd always concoct these like ludicrous
That would
situations,
never
these
happen. Yeah,
yeah, these
exactly.
completely melodramatic, insane situations. And so like if Sorkin was writing the script right here, what happened would be, you're correct, he would throw out Vance and replace Vance with Haley, and then he would keep doing worse and worse and worse in the polls. And then you'd have some like Trump giving some very angry speech, and he like is so angry he gives himself a heart attack or something, right?
He
And
dies.
no,
Look
he
at you.
doesn't die. He doesn't die, but he's like just weak enough that he has to drop out, and then that's how Nikki Haley gets the thing. Now Sorkin, because I think he's kind of dumb, would write the situation where because Haley is now the candidate, it becomes like a close race because it's like both women on the ballot. In reality, if such a weird situation were to happen, Nikki Haley would get blasted. She'd get absolutely annihilated because so much of the MAGA base fucking despises her and they would never vote for her in a million years. So
Yeah. Look, I don't then, but this is why the Haley versus Harris is interesting, because I don't know if, like, all of a sudden the stakes are completely different, right? You're fighting for the first female president. You know you're going to get the first female
yeah, but the
president
Republicans
in
don't care
history.
about that. They're not going to vote for that the way the Democrats would.
I think that they would, just to take it away from the Democrats, though.
No, I think if Trump somehow got replaced with Haley, the right would be so demoralized. You would
You
see probably one of the biggest one-sided elections in a long time.
You don't think Republican women would show up for Haley just to take it away from the Democrats? I
No.
completely disagree.
Okay. I don't think so.
They're just going to stay home and
Yeah.
leave. Okay, okay. They're just going to give it to Harris.
Yep.
All
I
right.
think you'd have a situation where 50% of the Republican voters would just stay home.
So
Numbers
let
that
me
high, yeah.
look. Let me ask you in an alternative universe where Trump
Okay.
just picks Haley, like where would we be?
It's the
Obviously,
same thing. Same thing.
no. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Look, he would pick Haley before Kamala Harris was even in the running here. Like he would pick Haley as a running mate. Do you
Hmm.
think she would be doing better than Vance right now? You think he would be doing better if Haley was on the ticket?
He would
You
no, he would be definitely doing better if Haley was the VP than
right.
Vance.
Because you're saying
Um,
Vance is a terrible pick. A lot of people are saying Vance is a terrible
yeah.
pick.
Here's the problem with picking Haley. Okay. He would be doing better, but there would be an asterisk there, which is again, a large swath of Trump supporters fucking despise Nikki Haley. They view her as the swamp. They view her as the old
Well, look,
Republican guard. And
you
wait,
keep
but wait,
saying that, but
let me
I
just
keep
finish. Let me finish. Okay.
okay.
And if she's the VP pick and Trump is the candidate, most of the MAGA people would still vote because they're voting for Trump anyway, and they'll be like, whatever, she's just the VP. It's just to appeal to the moderates, and the never Trumpers and whatever is what you got to do for politics. And they would still not care enough; they'd vote for Trump. But if Trump for some reason drops out or gets replaced by Haley, first of all, you're going to have a huge contention of Trump supporters think it's some kind of conspiracy that Trump was poisoned or something, to get him to drop out in the first place. And it's just the depression, like that's the problem, is that Biden dropping out. So we have to conceptualize Biden dropping out. The Democrats are in like this massively depressed emotional state. Biden dropping out and replacing with Harris gives them this massive boost of like energy and motivation. If Trump drops out, it's the exact opposite. They become more depressed. Not, they don't have this massive boost of energy if Trump drops out the way that happened with Biden.
Hmm.
That's the problem.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think
Mhm.
if Trump is losing, Trump is losing, I think they might be excited about him dropping out. Like obviously
Well,
they're excited for Trump if he's winning, but if
right.
he's down in the polls and it looks like he's going to lose this thing. I just this all of these Haley haters. I always wonder, are these like the Vivek people? Which
Hmm.
obviously it's like this internet type person who, yes, they
Right.
hate Haley because they see her as like an establishment shill, but she did do better than anybody else in the actual primary, right? She didn't come close to Trump, but she did way better than Vivek. So this
Yeah.
idea that everyone hates Haley and no Republican would ever show up to vote for Haley just I doesn't seem accurate to me.
Well, you could be correct because again, I could be falling in the trap of it's the internet people that hate Haley, and the
They
internet people
do,
are a
yeah.
tiny minority, and they also love Vivek, and Vivek got crushed. So maybe it's a bad judge of things, and that's definitely possible. I would just say to be cautious with sort of the data on how. I don't remember if Haley did better than DeSantis, but if she did, you'd even have to be careful because again, it's like, well, if it was just Haley versus DeSantis with no Trump, would she have gotten all the Trump votes or all the Trump votes go to DeSantis, right? It's like, yeah, maybe she'll do well because all the people that don't want to vote for Trump are supporting her already, right?
Right.
So, but you know what? I hope what you're saying happens just because it would make for an entertaining scenario. I don't think it will, but if it does, I guess we'll find out.
I mean, that would be historic. Obviously, you know for a fact you're going to get the first female president on November 5th.
Well, and
Whether or not
also it'd
it's a
be
Republican or a Democrat
right.
is and it would be an opportunity for the Republicans to take away the Democrats having the first black president. I don't know why
First
they
black
wouldn't
female president.
I don't know why they wouldn't be in this fight. Of course they would be in this fight. It'd be like fucking hell yeah. If for nothing else than to take it away from the Democrats. And
I don't,
they would
yeah.
capitalize on this idea that we live in historic times.
Okay. I just don't think that
Yeah.
they care that much about that, but I guess we'll find out potentially or not. So who knows?
Yeah.
Steamed hams for $5 says never forget the service industry tip compliance agreement program is Kamala's fault because of her tie-breaking vote, lying about no tax on tips. Yeah, I mean that's what they're gonna go with. We'll see. We'll see if Trump can make it an effective attack. I think only he has the ability to do so. M1A2 Abrams for $5 says Zoomer white women care more about killing babies and mean tweets than the economy, employment, immigration, national security, geopolitics, etc. Well, first of all, I mean, categorizing it as killing babies is that's like a losing strategy for understanding where people are coming from. And this is kind of the problem I think that the Republicans have fallen into. They sort of allowed the Democrats to cast the abortion thing as controlling women's bodies, right?
Yeah.
And so people see it as not like a quote, you like, oh, I just want to kill my baby. They look at it like, oh, you want that's why the Democrats are able to successfully paint Republicans as like you want to put them in the red cloaks with the white bonnets and you want to control their bodies and you want to bring us back, take away their rights to votes, blah 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 and all this stuff. So the Republicans haven't really been able to effectively counteract that message. And listen, if you felt that your rights as a man were being threatened by the government, you would probably be pretty persuaded to vote for that, whoever that candidate is that says he's going to protect your rights, even if you disagree with them on some other issues. So,
Yeah.
Stargate 44 for $2 says, have you seen the recent voter registration stats? What are your thoughts? I haven't. I mean, I looked it up when I saw your chat. There's an interesting kind of article from the New York Times that shows it says who's ahead in weekly voter registration. And it has two states. It has North Carolina and Pennsylvania. And here's what it's kind of interesting and it makes perfect sense. It shows you that the Republicans are ahead in voter registration pretty consistently since the beginning of the year until guess what
Oh
happens?
no. Oh
Biden
no.
drops out. And as soon as
Kamala
Biden drops out,
Kamala
all of a
gets
sudden
in.
you see Democrat voter registration, definitely increase and you see Republican voter registration decrease. And that really shows you like the power of energy and motivation. So
People want to vote for Kamala. They're registering to vote so they can vote for Kamala.
yes, yes. So
Yeah.
so that I mean that would make sense if something like that happens. So Republicans got to watch out for that. Eduardo Perano for $5 says Charles Johnson states that JD is an Israeli plant and Trump doesn't want to win because he has to do BB says or they'll do second try and succeed. I mean, I don't know who Charles Johnson is, but that all sounds retarded. So I don't know. I don't know anything about what you're talking about. I do not think that JD Vance is a magic Israeli plant and that Trump secretly doesn't want to win. I think that's completely detached from reality. Trump has so much reputation and
At stake,
at
yeah.
stake here, right?
Yeah.
This is either Trump's ultimate comeback victory or his ultimate, loser defeat. So I think there's no fucking shot that Trump has some kind of secret plan to sabotage
To
here.
lose? Oh man.
Right. So
Yeah, not at all.
JMac, thanks so much for $10. Says human hubris is a hell of a drug, Sitch. It really is. It really is.
True.
Stargate for 404 for Joe says, meanwhile, Wikipedia removed most of Vance's medals. Wait, really? Oh no. Is that true? That's
Wow.
crazy. That is insane.
Wikipedia is such a cesspool.
Yeah, Wikipedia is. I mean, I said this in 2014 with the Gamer Guy. I said Wikipedia has become totally ruined. So, that, I mean, if that's true, that is wildly despicable if that's the case. Amid the ongoing political dispute between Democrats and Republicans, it's been reported Wikipedia has deleted several of JD Vance's military decorations from his page. Let's see.
Wow.
Blah blah blah. Is that? I mean,
Harris probably has an ad running saying that he was a deserter.
right. Several users on X have shared screenshots showing the previous mentions of Vance's decorations and the recent change on Wikipedia pages. Wait, let me see if I can find that because that's crazy. If that's the case. Vance Wikipedia. Um, let's see. We have in July of this year, it lists under awards. Yeah, it lists Navy Marine Corps Achievement Medal, Marine Corps Good Conduct Medal, Global War and Terrorism Service Medal, Iraq Campaign Medal, Navy Marine Corps Sea Service Deployment Ribbon. And now, for some reason, those have all been deleted and only lists the Navy Marine Corps Achievement Medal. That's pretty crazy if they don't fix that. They don't change that. Hmm.
How are they going to? Wikipedia is controlled by these super progressive editors. Well, they're not really editors, they're like page squatters.
Right.
They just sit
Right.
there and make sure that the page remains the same. And it's completely decentralized editing system. So there's really no one to come in and say, "Oh, you can't do that."
Yeah, I just checked now. You're correct. They just checked now. They brought one of the medals back. They brought back the Marine Corps Good Conduct Medal. Um, so I guess we'll see. It's always fun to like go through the discussion page and see like
Mhm.
people arguing about this shit on Wikipedia. Jesus, Wikipedia. Google and Wikipedia become so fucking broken too. Like Google, it's almost impossible to find anything on Google nowadays. Like it's just become so shit. Have you noticed that? Like I feel like every day Google gets worse and worse. It's crazy. Like the only thing that's going to save Google is AI. Like they're thinking their lucky stars that AI might save them because their search engine is so fucking trash now. Even though I know they
Right.
make most of their money through ads anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter. But
The AI could help.
um, what?
Don't you just feel like you're being gaslit though when you search anything politically
I
related?
do. I do, yeah.
Do you ever go
Eduardo
over
Pereno for
to
another.
DuckDuckGo? You ever
I
use
need
them
to use.
instead?
I need to use DuckDuckGo more, yeah. Or
Yeah.
there's something that's called like I forget what it's called. It's called like Search the Internet. That's some new search engine, and I was like, oh, I should see if that worked, and I forgot.
Yeah. It could
Edward R.
flip. I mean, think of it. Facebook completely just annihilated MySpace. MySpace is a distant memory, right? That
That's
could happen
true.
with Google, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
If people just stop using it.
Hmm. Eduardo Perino for another $5 says JD Vance is an Israeli plant. Dun dun dun. And they want JD to lead the Republican Party. They are tanking election. Trump hates Vance. Kitchen table politics. Kitchen table topics will be here. I think there's a 0.0% chance that JD Vance is a magical Israeli plant. I don't even know what this concept even comes from. So Mike Mills for $5 says it's hard to care about this ad thing when the ex-CEO posts fake AI videos and blatant lies about Kamala while his posts are boosted in the algorithm. What was the what's the
He
fake?
did
What are you talking
that.
about? Wasn't
He
wasn't
did
that like
that
the obvious
meme.
joke post? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
joke post
Oh,
where
okay.
Kamala, it was an AI generated voice of Kamala saying, finally Biden dropped out and
Right, right.
she's so happy about it. I mean, it was hilarious. I did not think that it was real, but I did understand that people are stupid and a lot of people probably did think it was real, and a lot of even if you know that it's fake, a lot of times it will stick in your memory as real.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I just what do we do about this kind of stuff, Sitch? It is
Well,
basically information warfare on the internet.
yeah, I think with the AI stuff, it should have to be listed on the post or the video that it's fake or AI satire in the beginning, so people know that. But I'm still kind of skeptical that that post really has an impact on anything. So
Right.
I don't think there's that many like you know swing voters on Twitter seeing that video like, oh, this has changed my mind about something. So
Right. It's basically preaching to the choir.
right, right.
Yeah. It would be interesting to know the actual impact of it. So you could make a good decision on, you weigh the pros and costs. You're like, this is a funny joke. People like funny jokes, right? And it does
Hmm.
cost maybe 1,000 swing votes because people are dumb shits. Right?
Right.
So you're like, is it worth 1,000 swing votes just because people are idiots
Hmm.
for the happiness, for the joke?
Probably.
Yeah, of course.
Probably. Lord
Right.
Cameron in the chat says, regarding the Wikipedia article, looks like the medal remover said they didn't have a citation for the medals, and the re-adder said it was implied because everyone got them from Iraq. Well, this could be a good opportunity for Vance to come out and make a public statement that would be reported and thus could be sourced, where he confirms the medals that he got, and then in that public statement, he could also shit all over, walls for being hyperbolic with his stolen valor stuff. So
Right. This is a medal I got for going to Iraq. Now, you notice Tim Walz doesn't have one of these medals because
right,
he never set foot in Iraq, right?
exactly, yeah, yeah. Good faith Gary, thanks so much for the $20. Says happy Wednesday, everyone. Hope you're all having a good day, and I hope you're not uncharitably interpreting what your opponents say. Looking at you, chat. Wow, look at that.
Are they being uncharitable with us?
Well, probably with Kamala or something, but
We're getting a lot of that, but I think it's all fun.
it's all fun and games. Let's talk about prepping for $5. Says just received shipment of Hulk Hogan's Real American Beer, price similar to Budweiser. Good taste, shirtless Hogan with flag on the can. Cheers, lads. Wow.
Awesome.
Oh, if I
Yeah.
see one of those in a restaurant, I definitely order I'm curious what the Hulk Hogan Real American Beer tastes like.
You could check it out.
Hayden Dill for 25 months. This one with freedom. Thanks so much. Says the big 25. Ironically, I turned 25 last week. Well, look at that. Based. Congratulations. The amount of chances Trump gets to call out Kamala as a campaign of lies baffles me. Shame. I hope Trump loses so Republicans can change for the better. We'll see. Republicans are going to have to change whether he wins or loses. I mean, the question is whether it's for the better or worse remains to be seen. But
I'm I I honestly don't see how Trump can win this, but I know
people
nobody
were
wants.
saying, I don't see how Trump can lose this, and then 2 weeks changed and everything's flip flop. So I'd be cautious, right? Who
Well,
knows?
look, when I was saying I don't see how Trump could lose this, he was obviously going up against a corpse, Joe Biden.
Right.
Now, I just, I just, I don't, I don't see it. Like even
Okay.
if Kamala comes out and is not a great candidate, I mean, Trump is just not. He's not killing it. He's not killing it.
I agree with you.
He's preaching to the choir, and it's giving the impression to the choir that he's killing it.
Right.
But the choir, I mean, they don't matter so much. So, yeah.
We'll see. Stargate 404 $5 says, I think the polls, as wrong as they are a good thing for that reason. With Biden, there was a big risk of complacency and low voter turnout. Not so with Harris.
True. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Old school for 20 months. Thanks so much. Says Kamala's rise isn't just based on an illusion. It is an illusion. I'm a professional statistician who has followed polls for over 25 years. The polls are off. Interesting. Well,
Okay.
we'll see. We'll see. I'm curious.
Look, I think the polls could be completely off as well. Like, I'm judging, I'm going off of my gut intuition in the same way that I did in 2016. Look, I said in 2016 that I thought Trump would win. I bet money on it. Trump did actually win. And I bet based off of Trump, all of his campaign speeches, he framed everything in terms of fairness. And I thought that's a good campaign strategy. Do you see that happening now, Sitch? Is he framing everything in terms of fairness?
No.
The moral foundation that appeals to libertarians, progressives, and conservatives all in equal numbers?
No.
No. Yeah.
No.
I don't see Trump doing really smart things. And that's why I'm saying, look, I'm not basing this on the polls. I'm basing this on, look, and when he actually had the assassination attempt and stood up, and I mean, that was brilliant. That was politically brilliant. We talked about how this is his opportunity to rebrand as a transformational candidate. None of that happened.
Kind of threw that opportunity in the trash can. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, when
Right.
we were saying this is his to lose, we were saying there are steps here for Trump to take that could completely just lock this thing down. He didn't take any of those steps. So I'm not basing so much off the polls as I'm basing off of what I'm seeing the candidates do. Right. And
Right.
I did even like we covered the Republican primary. Donald Trump did not show up in the Republican debates. And I thought that was smart, obviously. He's like 50 points ahead. Why would he want to risk making one of these other candidates actually competitive against him, right? Did you think that was a smart move, Sitch?
That was a smart move. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and in the same way, I think Nikki Haley running from the reporters is a smart move in the
You mean
exact same way.
Kamala Harris?
Kamala Harris. Yeah, not Nikki. Yes, Kamala Harris.
Right.
Do you think Kamala Harris should be running to the reporters if she's unprepared or
No, she should be running. I mean, just as long as it's working, I guess you just keep doing it.
right? Yeah, in the same way that it was working when Trump did it. So, yeah.
Um, but I was just saying regarding the polling, Nate Silver brought up this point, and this is a good point too to remember, regarding whether the polling is accurate or not, is that there is a bias where whichever side is more enthusiastic about the election has a tendency to bias the polling in their favor because they're more willing to answer polls.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know. You could be, maybe we'll see something, a few weeks after the convention, because the convention is going to be another big boost to Kamala, presumably, unless she fucks it up somehow. Um, or we'll see after the debate, but it's, when you have the polls kind of match the vibe that people see on a national level and make people think the polls are correct, we will find out. So,
I am basing my analysis on what I'm seeing
I
the
understand
candidates do.
yes,
Yeah. The
yes, I
polling
understand.
is just inconsistent.
Superfluous.
I think a lot of people get too caught up in the polling. So,
Right.
yeah. If we, the thing that we're waiting for now is we're waiting for Kamala to do an interview. We're obviously waiting for the debates. Like we haven't really had a good opportunity to size up Kamala.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it is rattling Trump to some extent. I think I see Trump making mistakes. I mean, Sitch had a different perspective on the press conference that he did, but you know, it is what it is.
We'll see. We will see. Um, the chat father for $5 says, "Why didn't you guys do a classic Tuesday 12-hour stream and cover the entire Musk Trump conversation?" I mean, I don't know. I guess we thought about it, but I'm glad we didn't because it was super boring. So it just would have been a really boring conversation.
Yeah.
CS Pappy for $5 says, "Icky Haley versus horrible Harris." I like that. A hypothetical third party wins because no one wants to vote for a woman. Look, there you go. RFK wins because no one wants to vote for women. How would that look?
Well, be cool.
Nomad for 15 months. Thank you so much. Says, "Loving these presidential Kane. What if situations? LOL. Good show." Well, thank you, Nomad.
Yeah, thanks.
Rex Vectum for $20 says, "The final act is Trump and Kamala fall in love. And then in a bizarre 23andMe accident, they find out that AOC is actually their child. And they all quit and start a family business making scented candles. Unburdened fall 2024.
That's a
I love
beautiful
it.
ending. I love it.
Love it. A very good horse for 24 months. Thanks so much for big 2 years. A free will seeker says Haley is such a turnoff for so many people because of her anti-free speech stances. Also, 23 months of paying for my own membership. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. That's very generous of you.
Cameraman 502 for $5 says MAGA hate Haley despite her good service under Trump because they're losers who like being the eternal victims of an establishment conspiracy. Wow. There you go.
Look at that. Look,
Uh,
I find it hard to believe that Haley's going to lose by 10 points to Kamala Harris. Yeah.
Thal for $10 says, "Hey, Sitch, using chemicals to remove polish. Using chemicals to remove polish. Badoom. Adam, don't laugh. That's cultural appropriation on me and Sitch."
I don't
Oh,
get it.
I think it's a Holocaust joke
Oh, it is.
or a gas
It's all
tube guy.
Jewish. I don't even know.
Yes. Yes. I don't remember what the context of why he said the joke, but okay. But thank you for $10. M8566 for $5 says S class is best class. And 18 reigns supreme. But only the high flyers live outside the simulation. Look at that.
True. What I would give to
M1A2
see
Abrams.
outside the simulation.
There you go. Thank you so much, M1A2 Abrams, for $10 and the 20th ever super chat. Says Sitch, my rights as a man are threatened because Kamala will send me to die in a trench in Ukraine, Taiwan, while the women get to stay home and watch TikTok all day. Look, there you go. See? You got it.
Right. Yeah.
TL1524 for $5 says, have you guys seen Shogun? It's basically Japanese Game of Thrones. It's amazing. If you need a palate cleanser from House of Dragon season 2, watch it for your other channel. I've heard lots of good things about Shogun. I remember liking the original series or movie like a billion years ago, so I'll check it out.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Britt Cormier for $20. Thank you so much. Says removing the good conduct medal was a bit too far. All you have to do to receive it is serve 3 years in active duty without getting an NJP or court martial. It's basically a give me unless there's a paperwork to say no. Oh, that's interesting. Well, I would show that
Wow.
it seems to be like a bullshit thing. So, SB Elite for $2 says, how many normies don't know Biden is off the ballot? That's an interesting question. That is an interesting question. How many people will show up on voting day and be like, where the fuck is Biden?
That can't be the case. I mean, you have to be living under a rock.
I think it's possible. I think it's going to be at least 5% of the people that show up to vote on election day will not know until they show up that Biden is not on the ballot. You think that's too much? 5%?
I mean, maybe people are that out of it.
I would guess if someone is that out of it, Biden's not, that they don't know Biden's off the ballot, they're just going to vote for whoever the Democrat is anyway. So
Of course.
I don't
Yeah.
know if that have a big impact, but Very Dead Horse for $5 says that Biden Harris paid knob gobbler Harry Sisson posted an AI generated pic of a Kamala rally. Got any predictions on any more AI election shenanigans? Um, I don't have any predictions on that. Do you?
Not really. I mean, it's kind of disheartening that you can't really tell if something is AI or not.
Yes, yes. What picture are you referring to? You're not referring to that airplane picture, right? Because that was like obviously not AI, and there's like a really weird
Conspiracy going
campaign
on.
conspiracy to make it seem like it was AI when it like very clearly wasn't, because there's literally a video of the same crowd. So I don't know if that's where, I don't know if he did that or you're referring to something else. SB Lee for $2 says, what happens if Trump makes Kamala cry in the debate? I think that would be super interesting. If Trump makes Kamala cry, I guess it would depend on the context of why she cried, right? You know,
I mean, that would be not good for either of them, though.
Well, that it's, as I said, depends on the context, right? Like if it's just she's crying because she's weak and she's a weak woman, right? Then she just gets fucking annihilated. If she's crying because she had a child die and Trump is mocking her for having a child die, then I think it blows up in Trump's face, right?
Maybe, yeah.
It's just it depends on the context of the cry.
Right.
Fast and Bulbous for $5. Thank you so much. Says, I bet Harris is hiding and prepping for the debate using an AI Trump and a VR sim with haptic feedback. I bet you're right.
So much is riding on this debate. So much is riding on this first interview. She's got to be preparing. She is a prosecutor. She's got to know, that when you go into a courtroom and prosecute a case, it's all about preparation. How is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, look. We'll see what happens.
Mr. Ubercross for $10. Thank you, Mr. Ubercross. Says Real Clear Politics projects Trump to win the Electoral College currently. Do that.
Yes. Yeah. Trump is ahead right now. I've been looking every day. It's interesting because I do there one of the knocks on Kamala Harris, and who knows if this is correct, is that she is not well prepared.
Yes, that is true.
Like she doesn't prepare enough. She's a little lazy. There's a lot of drama in her office. There's a high turnover. All these are the rumors about Kamala Harris.
Hmm.
But I don't know. These are very high stakes. These are the kind of stakes that sometimes change people, right?
Right, right.
Like she might have had. I do think people can change. I do think life circumstances force people to change a lot of times. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if she rises to the occasion. Have you seen that clip going around of Trump saying that he was transformed by the assassination attempt, but it only lasted for like 5 or 6 hours?
Yeah, I haven't seen that now.
It's pretty hilarious.
That's funny.
He's obviously ripping
Right.
at some campaign stop. But I'm like, oh my God. He's like, yeah, I totally was. I was changed, but it didn't last long.
It's funny because that is actually like a hyper common thing. Like, in movies, they've created this like illusion, this idea that like some one event happens to someone and then they change. In reality, I think that mostly doesn't happen.
Look, if
That
someone can send us the clip, maybe we'll
right.
watch it.
That there's
The
like something that happens, someone changes very briefly, and then like they kind of slip back right and slip comfortably back into their old life. So
back into their same old self. Yeah, I
yeah,
think he says in the clip, he says something to the effect of, and then I realized these people want to throw my ass in jail. Like,
that's funny.
so he snapped back into, I gotta attack these people.
So I'm looking at the Real Clear Politics website, and it shows, I think I'm looking at the right page for the electoral map. It shows that they're predicting 208 likely Harris votes, 219 likely Trump votes, with 111 toss-ups. So they're saying that Trump's ahead, but that it's still too early to, at least from this that I'm looking at.
Right.
So let me see. Trump versus Harris polls. It's interesting. They have a collection of polls. All the polls but Rasmussen and CNBC have Harris up by a couple points, but only a couple points, so it's still very close.
None of these polls matter, Sitch. You
I mean,
know
that's
that.
true. That is true. So they get closer to the election. Well,
Let's
they matter in
see.
terms of they matter in terms of that the candidates react to them
Right.
mattering.
Yeah.
Right.
You can force. I mean, obviously, Trump wants to see that he's up. If he's up
Hmm.
5 points, he has this confidence boost, right? I'm up in the polls. That's what it's good for.
Right.
If Harris is up in the polls, she has this confidence boost. But I think she'd just come out and say, "Oh, we're still the underdogs. The polls are wrong. Got to show up on election day."
Okay, well, we gotta power through. So we gotta get to this fucking video. Otherwise, we're never gonna get to this video. Moondoggy for $10 says, "God bless, guys. The schizos in chat are hilarious." Thank you, and thank you for
Are
being
there
hilarious in
schizos
chat,
in
guys.
chat? We're not really. I'm not. I only
Haven't really
half pay
been looking.
attention to chat.
SB Elite for $2 says, "The fact the hiding strat works on Democrats says a lot." I think it would just work on. I don't think it's a Democrat thing. I think it works on general on anyone if the situation were to arise. So it would. It only works. It's only working for two reasons: because the left despises Trump so much, and because of the weird situation with Biden dropping out. I think if
I
the Democrats were to try to emulate this strategy in the future, it would utterly backfire.
I just don't like. I know it is a bit of a whataboutism, but I would never frame Trump not going into the primary debates as hiding. I would
Are
just
people trying to do
never
that?
frame it that way. Well,
Are people trying to do that?
it seems like the same thing.
I don't
People are
think
trying to
so.
frame Kamala Harris as hiding, but I
No.
just
But I'm saying I don't think the Trump ducking the primary debates is even remotely
is
comparable to
hiding.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it's comparable. The Rooster for $2 says new nickname Hayden Harris. I like it. That's good.
Mm-hmm. This is the narrative that they're trying to establish. But
Right. It's not catching yet.
do you think
So
she's hiding?
100%. Yeah.
Hmm.
You not?
I mean,
I mean, it's a good strategy, but she's hiding. It is a working strategy, but it is hiding. It's making yourself scarce.
right. Well, I'm thinking if she's actually preparing for the engagement, I guess I don't perceive it as hiding. Like she's in preparation mode. If she's just sitting around doing nothing, going, "Oh my God, I can't talk. We have to make it till November without me talking to the press at all," then I'd say, okay, yes, she is hiding, right? Like she's just incapable of engaging at all. There's a huge difference here. Is she hiding? I'm not sure.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Mhm.
Imagine in this hypothetical scenario where, you know, this was Obama instead of Harris, right?
Right.
Do you think Obama would be employing the strategy of not talking to the press, or do you think he'd be out there?
Hell no. He'd be like
Okay,
we've said this a
exactly.
million times. He would
Right.
be running
Yes.
running to the press, right?
Right.
Now look,
Exactly.
Trump kind of has that same moxie, right? He's running to the cameras. Do you think it would be a good idea at this point in his campaign to run to the cameras, or do you think a little bit more preparation might
No,
be
he
in
needs to
order?
do the opposite. He needs
Yeah,
to prep.
okay.
Yeah.
Look,
Right.
there is a
Right.
time when you run to the cameras and there's a time when you don't run to the cameras. Preparation is the metric that should be employed here in making this assessment, right? Are you prepared? I think Trump could stand to do a little more preparation. I don't know
Right.
where
But
Harris is at. Obama seemed prepared. Was he naturally prepared? Is he just
I think
gifted?
he's just a naturally good politician.
Right. Okay. Well, some people might need a little more preparation.
I okay. I mean, I get it. I get that she's preparing, but I still think she's 100% hiding. The
Okay.
100,000% is hiding, and she's gonna keep hiding as long as it works. So she's, as long as it's if it ain't
I
broke, don't fix it.
do you think, and this is an interesting,
So
do you think that she thinks that this strategy can be used indefinitely?
no,
Okay. I agree. So
no.
she's got to be preparing for this or,
I know. No, I
yeah.
listen. I don't think she's sitting in a basement eating bonbons. I think she is prepping for policy positions and people telling her what to say and what to do, and polling and all this shit. I think she is preparing. I don't think she's sitting around doing nothing. But I also think she's hiding, and I think they're playing a strategy where they're saying, "Okay, we're gonna hide Kamala until it's literally not possible to hide her anymore. They're gonna push the line as far as they can." Until like Kamala's ready, because they're hoping that, like a phoenix, she will rise out of the ashes and be this amazing speaker. Now I'm just completely skeptical of her ability to do that, but I guess we'll find out. So
Is How does this argument hit with independent voters? Do they think she's hiding or do they think she's preparing?
I don't think they care.
Right.
So it
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
okay. So it's completely inconsequential.
Maybe
The right thinks she's hiding, the left thinks she's preparing.
because a lot of people that are undecided don't decide who they're going to vote for until the last couple weeks of the
They're
election.
preparing. They're like, "Look, I want more
Well, I
information."
don't know if they're preparing or they're just not super interested. So
How do the because we have early election voting now. So in some states a month early. Do those people Do you think they wait? Do you think the independents always wait till the last minute, or do you think
I think they
sometimes they're
usually,
just like,
my understanding, I could be wrong. My understanding is when you look at polling, usually independents wait significantly longer.
right?
So, but you're right with earlier voting. Yeah, who knows?
Hmm.
Um, Daniel Irish for $10 says, "You did it, Adam. You found the only way I would ever vote for Kamala, replacing Trump with Nikki Haley."
Look at that.
J Mac,
That's an interesting super chat
there you
there.
go. J Mac, thanks so much for the $10. Says, "All right, that's it. I'm having steak tonight." Look at that.
Because I
Now I
said
want steak.
steaks so many times.
Right. Yeah,
I've
there
got
you
some
go.
delicious brisket. Oh, it's so good right now.
That's hilarious. I just watched the
Can't
whole
wait to have that for
video.
lunch.
I watched the whole video on how all the Wagyu beef that you get in the US is like 99% of it's all fake. So
Yeah. Oh,
Electro for $20. Thanks so much. Says S class is best class, and A team owes me a new pair of Bluetooth. When you guys talk about the polls, but I'm having trouble believing them after 2020, it's going to be a while before I start believing them. I think it's a lot of people, but my understanding is that Nate Silver was pretty accurate in 2016 and 2020. So that's why I value his opinion on these things.
right.
Thal for $10 says Kamala will get dominating the debates. Attorneys are used to pausing for as long as they need to address arguments. We saw this in her previous runs for president on stage. Trump will fill that void. That's an interesting point. That is an interesting point. We should go back and watch her primary debate performances. So we can kind of compare when she does this presidential debate, see if she's kind of learned anything new, picked up any new tricks, or falls to the same mistakes.
That would be fun. I think it's September 10th is the first debate
Yep. Do you want to make a? I don't know. Actually, I was like, do you want to make a bet that she'll hide until then? I think
until the
she'll come out
first
after the
debate.
DNC. I think she's just hiding until the DNC. That'd be my prediction.
Oh yeah, she can't. She's going to come out and do a prepared speech at the DNC.
No, no, obviously, but I mean, I think once the DNC passes, is then she'll start going out there and actually giving policy and doing all this stuff. That'd be my guess.
Right. And I do think, I mean, she's got the perfect excuse that she was thrown into this thing last minute. Like, she needs time to prepare. So this whole, why are you hiding? I don't think it really is a good attack. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, well, we talked about it before. I mean, I think Trump should be hitting her on her record and kind of forcing her out instead of just relying on the, why are you hiding? Why are you hiding? Why are you hiding? What are you scared of? What are you afraid of, huh? Look, I just did an entire press conference that was a complete shit show.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you do one?
Right.
No, you keep doing it. You keep doing the shit show press conferences. I'll keep hiding. Anyway,
Anyway, what am I looking at here? Kana X122 for $5 says Kamala's using the basement strategy. Mentis Waves made a video on her recently. She 100% is, yes.
Sitch
Uh,
is just like,
she
yes.
just is. I don't know what to tell you. She just is. SB Elite for $5 says she keeps repeating her speeches at rallies. Also, you think the DNC is going to be a mess with Gaza because I can see left in fighting because of them. I mean, she is like it's the same. As I said, I've been listening to a lot of her speeches, and it's like literally the same speech every time. She's completely doing her stump speech. For the Gaza stuff, I mean, I think they'll be protesting. I don't think any of them are going to necessarily make it into the DNC. If they, I kind of hope they do. It'd be kind of hilarious if Kamala goes on stage and you have a bunch of Palestinian protesters somehow break in and disrupt it. But I'm skeptical of that actually occurring. So,
I think the argument that people are making with the basement strategy is that the basement strategy is ultimately unfair. Not that it can't succeed, but that it's just an unfair strategy,
well,
which
it's
I
only
agree with.
it's only unfair because so much of the media is is too favorable to Kamala and too anti-Trump. That's what makes it unfair. If the media was balanced, it would not work. So I think that's what they sense as the unfairness, right?
Well, I also think it's unfair to the voters who want to know what her policy positions are. So,
Oh, we're talking about unfairness in a different. I meant
well,
unfairness
but
in a
you're
different
the
way,
way
I
that
guess.
you're defining unfairness is also true. Both are
Right, right.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, you are correct. Yeah. Austin Unruh for $5 says Kamala doesn't need to get in front of a camera because she can rely on the media to put a negative spin on any Republican to do the work for her. I mean, I think that is mostly true.
True. Yeah. Again, true.
Uh, Jamak Arsogafar, thanks so much for the $20. Says I've actually had rated Wagyu from Japan, A5. And yes, 99% of the Wagyu you get is fake. Real Wagyu has a melting point similar to your body temperature. It's like eating meat butter. Honestly, try it at least once before you die. Yeah, I saw that in the video I was watching. They were talking about that. Like it has a melting, like I think normal beef has a melting temperature like between like 100 and 120 or something. And that Wagyu was like lower than, 98.
Yeah,
So,
see, this is my experience exactly. I had Wagyu beef for the first time and it did melt in your mouth exactly like that, like
right,
butter. And I just thought, oh my God, this is amazing. This is delicious. And then I've had it again several times at restaurants and it just completely different experience. It just tastes
right,
like, maybe a filet mignon. It is tender, but it's just not the same experience.
right. Okay, let's watch some parts of this clip. Otherwise, we'll never get to it.
Are we?
Yeah.
Well, look, do we need to really watch the parts of the clip?
Well,
My whole,
I want to watch the ad, and then
okay.
I want to watch that one part with the chart because I want to point one thing out. Okay.
Okay, okay. Let me get where the
We can watch
fuck?
together.
Yeah, exactly.
Solo for $2 says, did you see Jesse Ventura on CNN say Vance was disgraceful to belittle Waltz's service? The clip I saw, they didn't tell him about the Iraq statement. Also, yesterday's super chat was in reference to Sunday's stream. Oh, okay. Um, oh, I got you. I didn't see that clip. No, that is interesting, mate. Yeah, I'm curious if Jesse Ventura doesn't know the full extent, or if he doesn't care and he just thinks it's gross either way. Hmm, that is interesting.
Who cares? Jesse Ventura. Who
Well,
gives
he's
a
just kind
fuck?
of interesting, weird guy. So
Oh, okay.
you got it. Got the
I
watch
got
button.
it. Yeah, ready?
Okay.
Sagar.
So
Go
this is
ahead.
Kamala's new ad for immigration. Okay.
Kamala sets harder stance on immigration in new ad, the Chiron says. This is breaking points.
Yeah.
To listen.
Kamala Harris has spent decades fighting violent crime. As a border state prosecutor, she took on drug cartels and jailed gang members for smuggling weapons and drugs across the border. As vice president, she backed the toughest border control bill in decades. And as president, she will hire thousands more border agents and crack down on fentanyl and human trafficking. Fixing the border is tough. So is Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
That she approves the message, Crystal.
So that's kind of interesting because this shows us, or hints at least,
Wow.
that there is going to be a very large pivot from Kamala to the center, right?
Of course. Yeah. Borders are Kamala
Right.
coming for you. I'm going to throw your border jumping ass in jail.
Because obviously, like this completely contradicts her previous statements about when she was in the primary and she was running to the left, and she was saying things like she wanted to, was it decriminalize, border crossings and stuff, and now we have this like, Kamala's tough on the border ad. So
Right. The thing that always bugs me, and I think Crystal says this almost verbatim in this video, is when they say, Democrats acting like Republicans. Why wouldn't people just vote for the real thing? Right. That seems to be the conventional wisdom. Like, why is this Democrat trying to do the Republican dance? Right. Aren't they just going to vote for the real thing? When I think, that's dumb, right? There's a whole constellation of policies that goes along with this person, right? Like, yeah, well, if you're voting for the real thing on the Republican side, you're also voting against, expanded abortion rights. So
right.
maybe you want someone who is tough on the border and going to be pro-choice. Like, you're just completely opening up the options for the electorate. So when people say that, it drives me crazy.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. I think Crystal's way fucking off on this one. I think she's letting her own policy positions cloud her judgment way too much in this regard. Because if you have a position where, or a situation, I should say, where everyone, including the left, is acknowledging that there's an immigration problem, the Democrats have to address it. And I think, pivoting or flip-flopping your position to be harder on the border is probably a winning strategy for the Democrats. And you're correct. It's not like people are just going to have this like, oh, well, maybe there are people that want the Democrats to be hard on the border, but they don't agree with all the other Republican policies.
Yeah,
and you should
totally.
open up those votes.
Yeah. So I think this is a winning strategy. Like the reason I think Crystal is against this strategy is because she is really in favor of those closer to open borders. I don't want to say she's for open borders, right? But I think she's more in favor of the lax immigration policy. So she doesn't really like the policy change that Kamala is putting forward. But I think a lot of people, and I've said this before, they mistake their own policy preferences for being some sort of smart electoral strategy, right?
Right.
Which I think this is probably the more smart electoral strategy for Kamala Harris, right? This is an easier way to peel off Trump voters who are voting based on immigration, but maybe don't like his stance on abortion.
Right. Or, that he's mean or whatever. Right. Or
Yeah,
6th stuff,
totally.
right? Yeah. There could be a million reasons. And this could actually be another reason that we didn't say today, but we've talked about in the past. This could be another reason why Kamala is hiding strategy is being put into place, is because if Kamala is going to make this like super pivot to the center, then it is better to kind of hide that till you get closer to the election, because it lessens the time that people can sort of go for the flip-flop angle. But even more importantly, maybe than that, it kind of cements the vision that everyone has on the left. So maybe it like kind of makes it harder for some of the further left people to kind of swing against her if she suddenly pivots like closer to the election. They still will, but it makes it more difficult. Like the idea of her has been more cemented in everyone's minds. So
yeah, it makes you wonder, who exactly is she hiding from, right? Maybe
she
she's
could be hiding from
Crystal.
the left. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? It's very possible. So we'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I want to watch this part too.
The Democratic instinct is, rather than make an alternative case that actually reflects, the vision as Democrats have expressed it, including Kamala Harris over the past number of years, just to see the ground, say, we're going to be just as tough. And again, I don't think that is the most effective way to go about it. But let's put this polling up on the screen. This is from a Democratic group that was testing a bunch of different messaging and potential attacks on Kamala Harris. And the one that was the most damaging was on immigration. The message they tested specifically was, Vice President Harris has been an absolute disaster on immigration. As Biden's so-called border czar, she has turned our southern border into a sieve, allowing countless illegal immigrants, criminals, and drug traffickers to flood into our country. Her incompetence and open border policies have jeopardized American security and overwhelmed our southern border. So that was the most potent hit on her that they tested. And they tested an economic message. They tested like something like the anti-family message. They tested the she's not really black message. That one didn't do particularly well. But note what the most effective rebuttal is here. The number one most effective rebuttal that they tested was, as a daughter of immigrants, Vice President Harris understands that people who want to come to the U.S. should do so the legal way like her parents did, and that we need a system that creates better legal pathways for people to immigrate the right way. Vice President Harris understands our nation's strength comes from immigrants, and we welcome people from all over the world to pursue freedom and opportunity here. Vice President Harris will pursue responsible, humane immigration policies that welcome, not threaten, those seeking a better life. So it combines, Sagar, the idea of like, okay, people should be coming here legally. Vice President Harris's parents came here legally, both of them, and people should come here legally. But we also need a system that allows for that. And right now, that's not possible. And it's a completely...
Okay, so let me go back to this little chart here. So this is kind of... There's something interesting here that she's kind of overlooking. So there's this group, they kind of do this polling. They're a partisan group, they do polling on this. And it's like, okay, Kamala's going to get a big hit with the immigration, right? And the top of the thing is, as Crystal was saying, this policy about like, well, she's a daughter of immigrants and she understands that people want to come the legal way like our parents did. And we need a system that cultivates that. Immigrants are our strength, blah, 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 right? It's just a very kind of like, it is something that will read completely wrong to anyone that's not on the left, right? That like choosing that, even though that's the highest rated score thing, like, yeah, that can score high with the left. That is a dog shit messaging for the right. Or
do you
anyone
think so?
100%. Yes.
Wow. Okay. I
It's
was
going to come
thinking
off as
how
so weak. Yes.
really, I was thinking how this is a common response I see on the right. The right gets super mad that the left conflates legal immigration and illegal immigration. So many people on the right say, I'm in favor of legal immigration. It's illegal immigration that I'm against. And this message seems to speak to that. So I was thinking, look, this is a good response to the right.
No, what do you mean? It conflates, it does the exact thing you're talking about. It conflates the two things the same way.
Read it again.
As a daughter of immigrants, Vice President Harris understands that people who want to come to the United States should do so the legal way, like her parents did, and that we need a system that creates better legal pathways for people to immigrate the right way. Vice President Harris understands that our nation's strength comes from immigrants and that we welcome people from all over the world to pursue freedom and opportunity here. Vice President Harris will pursue responsible, humane immigration policies that welcome, not threaten those who seek a better life.
Okay. So
There's
it's
nothing-
the last sentence that you're saying they would object to.
Well, no, the whole, because this is the problem with it. The entire, none of that addresses the problem that there's way too many people coming to the border and saying that they want asylum and then just getting lost in the system, right? It doesn't
Right.
actually, this answer doesn't address the issue at all. It reads to me like classic Democrat bullshit immigration policy. It
Dodge.
doesn't, it's a complete dodge, right? It's like, yeah, everyone wants, not everyone, most people want a system that makes a pathway for people that we want in this country that would be useful to the country to be able to immigrate. Everyone, not everyone, most people want that. Okay. But this to me reads so pandery with our nation's strength comes from immigrants, blah, 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 blah. And if you're a person who's worried about immigration at all, and you look at this answer, it's like a spit in your face. This isn't going to address anyone that cares about immigration. Think about it this way, Adam. A person who thinks we have an immigration problem, okay, if they hear that answer, do you think they're going to go, oh, wow, I trust Kamala to deal with the border situation?
Well, it's fluff. It's not really, it's light
Exactly.
on details. Let's just put it that way.
Right. No, it's total trash. Okay. So, but then this is kind of interesting too. Look at the bottom one. This is the lowest scored thing.
Right.
So it says Trump and Republicans are lying about the reality that border crossings are down 55% in the last 2 months because of the vigorous enforcement work of Vice President Harris. Vice President Harris has also worked tirelessly to address the root causes of migration, securing over $1 billion in private security investment to improve conditions in Central America to discourage people there from migrating, and has directly told potential migrants not to come to the United States.
Right.
So this is, and I think part of the reason that this is just the lowest rated one is because it's a gaslight. It's a denial. It's a complete and utter denial of the problem. Completely.
Yes.
It's saying,
yeah.
it's like,
that's a great point.
it's
Who
like
are the
with-
respondents here? Do we know? Just is this
I'll check in a second, but
independents or anyway, go ahead.
it's like with the, Biden kind of trying to gaslight people about
On inflation,
about
yeah.
inflation, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't fucking work. And it's not going to work with immigration. I think that's why it's such a low thing. So,
Right.
let's see.
Well, the top rebuttal is probably the top because it is fluff. Like you can read that in multiple different ways, which
Right.
everyone tends to read with the rose-colored glasses. That's kind of human nature to do that. I do think it's also interesting that look at the kind of testing that's going on here.
Mhm.
It's like, wow, they're really diving into the analytics here. What is this blueprint?
Blueprint. Yeah, I'm on their website. It doesn't say who their poll was. I wouldn't be surprised if the poll is massively left-wing biased, because
Right. If
I can't
it's
imagine any
all aimed at
Republican
Democrats. Yeah.
Right. I can't imagine anyone on the right would see that top answer and score it highly at all. It just
Right.
doesn't even seem possible.
Well, the key is to aim this at independents, right? Obviously.
Right.
That's who you're trying to win over.
Now let's look at the second one. Okay, so this is also the second highest rated thing. It says Vice President
90%
Harris,
rating, yeah.
90% rating, yeah. Vice President Harris is a prosecutor, and over the course of her career, she's taken on gangs and drug smugglers and put a violent cop killer behind bars for life. She supports bipartisan legislation to give Border Patrol the money they need. She will take a border security first approach to our immigration system, putting violent gangs like MS-13, drug smugglers, coyotes, and human traffickers in prison. Now, this is hilarious to me because Crystal kind of brought up this polling data to show that Kamala was doing something wrong when it's super clear that her campaign literally almost word for word took the second suggestion and made that into a commercial.
Right.
That was the commercial.
And
That was
also,
literally the fucking commercial.
that's the one that will definitely appeal to the right wing right there.
Yes,
We're
and
going to throw
independence.
violent gangs and
Well, and this one's actually kind of so much more clever. And the reason for it is because you notice it focuses on like criminals. It doesn't
Right.
really actually say anything about like, well, what do you do about asylum seekers? What do you do about like people that aren't criminals, right? It completely dodges that question and just says, I'm tough on the border because I'm fighting the criminals.
Right. And that's all Trump talks about. So it completely undercuts his argument.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
a response to his argument because Trump is going around time and time again saying that she's weak on the border. She wants to let these violent criminals come into the United States and run amok. That's his argument.
Exactly. Exactly.
And she's saying, no, I'm not. I want to throw
Right.
their asses in jail.
And then the third option, which still scored high at 82, says Trump and the Republicans talk a big game on illegal immigration, but they killed a bipartisan bill that would have increased funding for the Border Patrol and shut down the border during migrant surges. While Republicans play politics with a serious issue, Vice President Harris has a clear vision for secure border and effective immigration policies. Building on the steady drop in migrant crossings, she will follow through with the current ban on asylum claims and the bipartisan plan to strengthen border security, fix our immigration system, and end catch and release. Now, it's interesting because that's the most substantive answer, and it still rates highly, but it's third place. So
Right.
they
Well,
went
it's
with the more
82% versus 90. So it's really only an 8-point spread.
That's true. That's
which
true.
is not ginormous. So
It's not ginormous. And I would say that the 82 one is the more like, if that is what her policy would be, that's the most policy laden, position to kind of put out there, as opposed to like the fluff position that the first two kind of are. So,
right.
but I just
Yeah.
thought it was so funny that Crystal brought this up, and I was like, they literally did the second option for the commercial. So,
And this is why respondents is so important, because I do think you could flip these just by picking certain respondents, right?
right.
If you're picking more right-leaning respondents, you're going to get that 82 up more towards 96%.
Of course. So, okay. I thought that was interesting.
This is fascinating, yeah. So this, I do think obviously the pivot on immigration is coming. How is this going to affect the Trump campaign?
I mean, I think they're just gonna say she's lying. She was the border czar. She didn't change. She didn't do anything now. Like one of the most effective, what should be, and I talked about this yesterday, what should be one of the most effective tactics for Trump is to say, Kamala's making all these promises, yet she was vice president for 4 years. Why hasn't she and Biden done any of these things already? Right. And I think that Trump, besides hitting the fake, phony Kamala, Hayden Harris kind of thing, that's also a very, what should be, I don't know if it will be, but logically should be a very useful line of attack, is that Kamala she's promising the moon and she didn't deliver for the last 4 years. So why would you expect her to deliver, coming in the next 4 years?
Right. Well, he should see this coming. I mean, obviously we've put it all together, and who are we?
Right.
So, I mean, I would be proceeding with that messaging now. What's waiting, right?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you.
That is an
Discipline.
effective
That's what's
attack.
waiting. Okay.
That is discipline.
Discipline.
That would be an effective attack. Yeah. Head off the border pivot before it actually happens.
Right.
I mean, I don't know where this ad is running. This ad is pretty hard hitting.
It is. Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know either. So,
Get
SB
out
Lee for
ahead of
$2 says, "Are they accounting for machismo and minority groups?" Probably not. Christian Ball for $5 says, "Sitch, do you think that journalists was really asking if the White House would stop the interview with Trump and Elon. It seems like he was asking about our misinfo. So it's very unclear to me what the fuck that journalist was saying. I honestly don't know if he was saying, because I watched it and my first impression was this journalist is asking for them to like shut down this interview. And then I watched it a second time and I had the same reaction. And then I watched a third time. I'm like, okay, is he just saying to to just to just have something about misinformation in general? I don't know. It's completely unclear to me. And my interpretation from listening to the press secretary's response is it seems like she interpreted the question as, would the White House do anything specific on Twitter and with this interview? That was kind of my impression. So I have no fucking clue what he was saying. I think it was one of the worst poorly worded questions if he didn't mean to shut down the interview intentionally. And as a journalist, he should definitely know better than to say something that fucking retarded. So
Yeah, as a journalist,
right. And
don't
even
let this interview take place.
right. And even if he didn't mean to stop the interview, just meant in general, it's still a stupid fucking question. You're literally like asking, well, was the White House going to do something to combat, legally to combat misinformation on a private platform? Like, what kind of dumb fuck question is that? So, Joey Hollywood Films for $20. Thank you so much. Says, Sitch, I've heard you bring up Battlestar Galactica over the years. I recently watched it, and when I first saw it as it aired, I hated the ending too. But this time around, I thought it was flawed, but not nearly as bad as I used to say. S-class for the win. Really? That's interesting. I don't know. I don't know if I have it within me to rewatch the entire series, but that is interesting that you had a change of opinion on the whole thing. Maybe, I mean, it's possible that like if I watch it again because I know that that shit ending is coming, it won't hit me the same way. If I, like a surprise, like if you're rewatching Game of Thrones and or even if you weren't rewatching, you watch it for the first time, but you know that everyone hates the last season.
Season
and the
8,
ending
yeah.
sucks. Right. You can kind of like mentally prepare yourself for it. So maybe that kind of lessens the blow.
I was mentally prepared.
Right. Well, I was because I was one of the people that thought Game of Thrones had been going downhill for years. So I was kind of just seeing the train wreck get worse and worse and worse. But
Wow. Always ahead of the curve, Sitch. How do you do it?
Thaw for $10 says, thank you. Thaw for $10 because it's very easy. I'm a big hater. That's the answer to the question, right? Everything turns to shit eventually. So if you're a hater, you're going to be right most of the time.
Right.
Thaw for $10 says, as a conservative, Sitch is right, Adam. It's a dog poop message. It sounds like amnesty to us, which is not a fix. It's an open border policy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lethal Strain for $5 says the bill was shut down because of the Ukraine spending that was added to it, and I agree these positions equal chameleon characterization. I agree with the chameleon part. I completely disagree about the Ukraine part. It was literally the Republicans that stipulated the Ukraine thing, and even if they would have removed the Ukraine element from it, the Republicans would have 100% voted against it. All the messaging about it, I don't even, if you look at the messaging about it, it wasn't even really hyper fixated on the Ukraine stuff. It was more like this bill, this is an open border bill. This allows too many illegals in, this blah, 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 blah. It was always the focus on it primarily from the right was that it wasn't strong enough. So I don't agree at all that it was the Ukraine element that is why they voted against it. I think it was very, very, very clear to me they voted against it just purely because they want the issue to be relevant for this election. And,
Right.
that's why there was all this, Donald Trump was telling them not to vote in favor of it. So he wasn't saying to not vote in favor of it because of the Ukraine spending. Arithmus for $2 says, hey, Adam, you've said several times that there are 2016 Trump voters that defected to Biden. What is your evidence for this claim? Trump received significantly more voters in 2020 than in 2016.
They keep talking about it in various articles and whatnot. They keep bringing up these voters that voted for Trump and then voted for Biden. So I'm assuming they have some sort of voter rolls that have determined where, obviously they have various counties and they know if the county went for Trump and then went for Biden the next time around, they can deduce how many voters defected. So I don't know that they
Right.
have I don't know that they can identify someone specifically and go, okay, this person voted for Trump. I don't know that they can. There's somewhat of a secret ballot thing going on, but there are all these other metrics that people can look at to kind of figure out someone's preferences. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have some sort of voter roll that they've concocted that is, the best candidates for these people.
Mm-hmm. So there's articles you can, if you look for, like there's an article. It's like how Trump turned off swing voters in 2020. 1 in 20 Donald Trump voters are switching to Joe Biden. Now you'd have to dig in these numbers. I'm just looking at the headlines. I don't know if the numbers are correct, but you can check it out. And the Trump organization should be looking at this information.
They should be
So,
combing over it with a fine-tooth comb, obviously. Right. They should be focused on how they're going to capture, but I'm not sure this is how, like, obviously everyone has talked about Trump is not running a conventional candidacy. Like, he's an outsider, political outsider. I think the reason why these
second time.
Yeah, I think the reason why these political insiders win is because they know how it works, right?
Right.
Look, you have this, we just went through this messaging testing, right? They got 5 different options and they're testing those options on actual voters to find out which is the best for Kamala to say. You think Trump is walking out to the microphone at Mar-a-Lago with any sort of tested information like that? No, he's going out and he's seeing what sticks.
Well, he might be walking out with that information. I don't think it's changing anything of his behavior.
Right.
So
I'm skeptical that he's even getting that information, to be honest with you.
I don't know. Skinnerbox 4445 says, why are you confused on why Kamala didn't act sooner? If you are well aware that the Republicans shut down the bill, seems obvious Republicans will shut it down. I'm confused by the question. Why are you confused on why Kamala didn't act sooner? What do you mean? Act sooner on what? Do you understand that question, Adam?
Why are you, like, maybe on the border policy?
What do you mean act? Why would act? She's vice president. She's not acting on anything.
I tweeted something out about this, that the conservatives lose the Constitution argument when they keep making this argument that Kamala is in office now, like that she could be locking down the border because she's vice president. I'm like, that's not how it works. The president has limited powers. The vice president has basically no powers beyond breaking a tie in the Senate. And I mean, you can make a case that she has some influence. She definitely doesn't have leverage over any of these people. And I would argue leverage is what it takes to get legislation passed. So you know that this is a common argument that's going around on the right? They're acting like Kamala Harris is president now. So why isn't she doing all of these things? What's your take on that argument?
As I said, I think it's an effective argument because it's based on the perception. Most people don't have a correct perception of how the vice presidency works.
Right.
So I still think even if it doesn't make sense, technically, it's still a good argument and it's still a good political strategy to say, why didn't Kamala do the stuff now?
Yeah, no, it's super effective. And my only claim in the tweet was you just can't say my Constitution every time someone says something that is not constitutional. Right.
You guys said that Kamala and Biden should have acted sooner. You said, why don't they just do it right now? Oh, regarding I think that Biden, first of all, Biden should have not even talking about like a strategy perspective, just from like the health of the country perspective. There were a couple years that went by after COVID lockdown ended and Biden totally fucked up immigration policy. That his plan or his administration's plan for immigration policy was fucking retarded. It was so stupidly retarded. And it should have been very obvious to his administration that their plan was not going to work just by looking at the way immigration and the problems with immigration under Trump and even under Obama. They should have seen this playing out. And so, yeah, they should have had a bill like this far sooner. And then even if the bill doesn't pass, because, well, obviously, if they could kind of push this bill earlier, maybe you could have got it passed because it wouldn't have been so close to the election and you wouldn't have had the Republicans do kind of the nonsense that they were doing to be against it, number one. But number two, even then, if the Republicans push against it, what I said, and I think this was like months ago, is I said, what Biden should do is that they should have had this bill like years ago. They should have passed it. And then they should have put it up there. If it didn't pass, then Biden should have done an executive order to try to deny, to shut down the border from asylum seekers.
Didn't he do an executive order though?
He did something recently. But what I'm saying is that he should have done an executive order and allowed it to basically be a news cycle where if the left-wing immigration groups want to sue the Biden administration for being too tough on immigration, let them do that and force the Supreme Court to basically either overturn it or let it pass. Either way, that'd be a huge win, I think, for Democrats, because it would definitely change, or it would be a good way of showing like, oh, listen, we're not soft on crime. I literally did an executive action once the Republicans wouldn't pass this tough border bill, and the Supreme Court, either overturns it or it doesn't. If the Supreme Court overturns it, then you throw it back in the Republicans' face. If they don't, then it makes the Democrats look strong in immigration. So
right. Here's June 4th, 2024. Biden signs executive action drastically tightening border. He has faced political pressure as migrants have continued to arrive at the U.S.-Mexico border. Yeah, he signed an executive order after the border bill failed.
Right. But did it do the exact same thing that the border bill did, or was it something different?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Because if it did the same thing, then it's interesting, because then that kind of actually proves the Republicans were correct, because they kept saying, we don't need to pass a bill. The president can just do it on his own. So
Biden's executive action will not make border more orderly or secure. That's the American Immigration Council.
Sure, but
yeah, look,
you'd have to look at exactly what the order did.
Yeah, so. And you'd have to look I would prefer to look at the executive order and say,
right,
like, what is exactly in it? Here's fact sheet. President Biden announces new actions to secure the border. So this is from whitehouse.gov, June 4th. Right. I mean, we're running late here, but we could read through this maybe tomorrow.
Okay, are we streaming tomorrow?
It's up to you.
Okay. I don't know. We'll see, I guess. For streaming tomorrow or not. Okay. Yeah, I'll look at it. Let's see. JMac for $20. Thanks so much. Says, hey, anyone in the political sphere make you guys think of knobbly horned, nervous, rotten, nut gobbling quadruped? Maybe someone you guys have covered. I'm open to suggestions. There you go. That's right. JMac is naming things in No Man's Sky. So if anyone has an idea on a knobby-horned, nervous, rotten nut gobbling quadruped for someone that we've covered, let JMac know in the chat.
I mean, there's obviously David Pakman. There's Hamas Piker is a nut gobbler. Who are all the nut gobblers that we know? Got any?
Terrible. Terrible.
Come on, we're just having fun here.
Okay.
Is that it? Are we good?
Instasax for 9 months says, sorry, Sitch, I just tuned in, but I have to agree with Adam on everything he said so far. A-Team reigns supreme. Look, there you go.
Yes, there we go. Look, I love it. Just gives me the benefit of the doubt. That's the power of the A-Team, Sitch.
Nice.
I know you're insanely jealous of it.
I'm so jealous.
It's part of my cult, okay?
So jealous of the cult of personality.
Nobody cares about rational arguments, okay? It's all about being cool.
Right. If this executive order is as effective as the bill, even though that kind of proves the Republicans correct, and maybe that's why Kamala doesn't want to say it, she should just say that we did do something on the border. Fuck you. Why I don't understand if that's the case, if the executive order is as effective as a bill, then Kamala's kind of a retard because she should say, we tried to pass a bill to fix the border. The Republicans didn't do it because they're partisan hacks, and we did it anyway with executive action, right? We said, fuck you, and we did it anyway. And it's a total misstep from the Democrats for Kamala if they're not just shouting this from the rooftops.
What if they're building suspense and that's what she's going to say in this big interview everyone's anticipating?
Maybe.
Look, if she just comes out and starts doing 10 interviews a day, those 10 interviews a day are not going to get the kind of coverage the first interview she does after 3 weeks of silence gets, right?
Right.
That's really going to make an impact. Look, and then she can say all this once. She doesn't have to say it 10 times.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, because I'm looking at this article and it does say that the executive order temporarily shuts down asylum requests once the average number of daily encounters hits
That's the problem.
2,500. The shutdown will go in effect immediately since the threshold has already been in effect. The border will only reopen once the number drops down to 1,500. So I don't understand why Kamala's not just shouting this from the rooftops and saying the Republicans stopped us on the border and we did it anyway without them. Because then that shows that kind of completely circumvents the whole "why didn't you do anything now" argument.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Bad campaigning from the Harris campaign then.
Maybe they shot it. Maybe the Supreme Court shot it down immediately or something.
I don't think.
Because the asylum seeker loophole is the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think the Supreme Court has taken up any case about it yet. So.
Right. Yeah, look. She's got ammo. She's ready to rock and roll.
We'll see.
You think Trump knows this? Any of this stuff?
No clue. Lethal Strain for 2 hours says, I replied to that racist Joe holding her back. There you go.
Oh, nice.
The chat file for 5 hours says, in March of 2021, President Biden vested VP Harris the full authority of his voice and power to stem immigration from the North Triangle.
What?
Okay. Let's talk about prepping for 5 hours. Says border bill, 31,000 immigrants a week before closure. Executive order, 17,000 before closure. They hid their power level. Oh, that's actually hilarious. The executive order was more stringent than the actual bill. Interesting. Maybe they're hiding it because they think it will be bad because too many people on the left will complain about it or something. But I think that's a mistake if that's a thought process.
Wow, that is interesting.
Yeah.
That is super interesting. So it was like twice as strong.
Right.
They're like, why are we letting it get up to 31,000?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why not just stop at 1,000?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, to be clear, it's not 17,000 get in free. It's 17,000 processed according to existing asylum laws.
Right. And then they close it down.
But
they should be closing it sooner. Anymore. Like, why are we doing?
Well, I don't know however many I don't know what the number is the system can handle in a timely manner. So, because that's the problem. People think that means 17,000 people get to be American citizens. That's not what that means. It means 17,000
they're released into the country. Yeah.
Right. But that would, it would not be an issue if you could it takes 1 week for them to adjudicate the matter, right? And then you decide and you either let them stay or throw them back.
Somehow I find it difficult to believe that we have enough judicial resources to process 17,000 people a week.
You're probably correct.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. They actually said what they were shooting for. I think they were actually shooting for 2 months or something, which I think is way too long. But
right.
I already said my position is I don't think people should be able to apply for asylum on the border at all. So
how many are they processing a day? Is that a figure that we can look up? Will Google allow us to know how many people they can process a day? Because part of the border bill was to hire judges specifically to process these people, right? To work through the backlog.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's delivering specific resources to that.
Mm-hmm.
We probably have to take asylum seekers because it's in our other treaties. So it's some kind of treaty violation.
Right.
So, but anyway.
But maybe that's a good thing. Just be like, listen, we're violating the treaty, but if the other countries complain, then we'll deal with it then.
Yeah, that might be the path to go.
So, anyways, Lethal Strain for $5 says, "Did you see Stephen A. Smith video on Harris not doing interviews?"
No,
I
I don't even know who Stephen A. Smith is, but I'll look it up.
The ESPN guy. Huh. Anyways, thank you
That
all
was
for
great.
coming.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll
Take
see
care,
you
everyone.
maybe tomorrow. Definitely Sunday.
All right. Bye-bye,
Bye.
everyone.